Good evening from Election Central. We are underway. The 7 News projections are already up and counting. Now, that bar at the bottom of your screen will track the race to 76 as our formulas and experts forecast the winner in every seat and who will be Australia's Prime Minister. Already, you can see 7 News is calling 32 seats with an early lead to Labor.
We will have up-to-the-minute results and every political opinion that matters is with us tonight. West Coast polls still open, of course, but the ballot boxes are open and emptied elsewhere, with counting underway.
Now, let's meet our panel. Mark Riley is the only political editor to have been on the entire campaign trail. He doesn't get to put his feet up tonight, though. He's got a bit more work to do yet. Also with us tonight, Environment Minister Tanya Plibersek, former Labor leader Bill Shorten. From the other side of politics, the Shadow Finance Minister Jane Hume and former Liberal candidate Warren Mundine. Good to have you all here. We're going to get your opinions in a minute as we get into some numbers.
You can tell they can't wait, but we also have insiders and senior politicians in the Situation Room, including the great disruptor Clive Palmer, ready to blow the lid on who should win and why. We know he will create a headline tonight. He looks ready, doesn't he?
He's sitting in the Liberal camp there for the moment, though. There you go. We'll cross to him in just a minute. First, our priority for you, though, is calling the important seats, exactly where you live and why it matters tonight. Let's go to Hugh Whitfield at the 7 News Power Board with the very latest numbers, Hugh.
Hello, good evening, everyone. As you can see, we have already projected that Labor is on track to hold at least 20 seats at this early stage. The Coalition 9, mainly very safe Labor seats on this side of the board. We come through here. This is the messy middle ground, the crossbench, but we are saying that Bob Katter will retain Kennedy, Rebecca Sharkey will retain Mayo, and Andrew Wilkie will retain Clark in Tasmania. At this end of the board, they are the safe coalition seats. We are already projecting that the coalition is returning, picking up 9 of these seats. You can see the blue there for the LNP and the Liberals, the green there for the Nationals, 3 national seats so far, 6 for the Liberals and the LNP. And this is where we're going to be breaking down every seat. Let's take a look at one seat in particular. How about the Prime Minister's seat of Grayndler in the inner west of Sydney? Now, 7 News is already projecting that the Prime Minister will retain the seat of Grayndler. He's held it since 1996. We've got just one booth reporting at this stage, but it is looking like Anthony Albanese is safe in Grayndler tonight.
OK, thank you very much, Hugh.
It is a race to 76. Now, the number a party needs to win the majority in the lower house and obviously win government. You can see the 7 News projections have already given those seats down the bottom there, and we'll keep updating them as the evening goes on. But the 7 News Needle has been analysing data during the campaign to predict the winner. You might have seen it in our evening news, and Riles is at the Needle physically. Where's it at, Mark Riley?
Michael, it's now leaning towards Anthony Albanese retaining the Prime Ministership. It started this campaign in the toss-up area because why the Coalition started this campaign 52-48 ahead in most of the popular opinion polls, and then that flipped almost immediately that the campaign started and Labor went ahead 52-48. At the end of the campaign, a little bit beyond that, 52.5, 47.5. So the needle moved from toss-up to lean. It went into the middle of the lean section for Anthony Albanese retaining the Prime Ministership and went a little bit closer to likely and came back a bit in the last 10 days or so. But tonight, we'll be shifting that as the numbers come in. This is an election where we have national polls telling us one thing, but don't be fooled by that because there are, as there always are, 150 individual elections in 150 seats tonight, and the results will be different depending on the region, the area where they are, and that's the real fun of election night. It is going to be a terrific night, Michael.
It is indeed. All right, Ros, thank you. Our panellists might be inclined to get up during the night and shift the needle in their direction if they feel it's not going their way. Feel free to do it if you like. Let's bring in our panel now. Tanya Plibersek, Bill Shorten, Jane Hume, Warren Mundine. Tanya, let's go to you first. How confident are you and the party this evening?
Well, we take nothing for granted and we'll be working right till the very last minute. There's still votes coming in Western Australia and we'll be working for every one of those votes. But I am looking at some of the very early results from tiny, tiny booths in Queensland and the ACT. And I'm seeing some good numbers. They're very small booths and they're very early numbers, but they're putting a smile on my face.
Okay, let's go to Jane on the other side. What are you seeing? What do you think we will see tonight? How early?
Well, the coalition obviously started this as an underdog. It would be a 100-year record if we managed to unseat a first-term government. We've always been away from that from day one. We came in on around 54 seats on current boundaries, so there's a big ask, 21 seats plus one more to make a speaker to get a majority. That's a very big ask, but we are seeing some green shoots in seats that are really unlikely. I think the most important factor here that we're going to have to take into account tonight is that there was such a huge pre-poll vote, bigger than we've ever seen, certainly in Victoria, more than 50%. And pre-polls do tend to favour the coalition, as do postal votes, but the counts on the night tend to favour Labor. So we'll see how all that plays out.
It's such a huge pre-poll too. It's going to be fascinating to see those numbers as they roll in this evening. Bill Shorten, how do you sit here tonight? Comfortably? Are you regretting getting out of the game? You know what it's like to lose. 2019 was hard. How are you feeling tonight?
Oh, I'm rapt to be at the University of Canberra, but I miss great colleagues like Tanya and Jane. But I've got a little more freedom to say what I think, and I think I'm going to say three things. One, Coalition has run, without a doubt, the worst campaign in living memory. I wouldn't want to be part of that post-mortem. Good luck. Two, I'm quietly confident that Anthony Albanese and Paul Erickson have run, to be honest, a campaign where we started at the start of it down, and I think they've been so disciplined. And three, just to sort of put some detail in there for my Queensland friends, Shane Newman's the member for Blair. That's a seat the Libs must win to form a government. He's the Baron of Blair, and I'm going to predict that he will win tonight. I've already got some information from some of his scrutineers, and let's see how we go in Blair. Early days, but, you know, great.
How do you
Well done,
think,
Shane
how do you
Newman.
think Anthony Albanese ran his campaign?
Oh, I think he was disciplined. I think beginning January, he was just out of the blocks. I think he's been running, he's been running his campaign for 30 years, but in the last 3 months, I thought that was the elbow of self-discipline. We've got plenty of time to and fro during the course of the night, but really, you know, the Libs didn't have a black hole in their finances. They had about 3 million quarries. It's just terrible.
Well, that's not true. First Labor line of the night.
You're willing to spend money on defence, but you couldn't tell us what on. You just said, hello, the sort of the Simpsons of politics are here, and we just want to spend money on defence. Like, people aren't dumb. They can work out just stuff being... And if the defence policy was so good, why did you sort of serve it up like an after-dinner mint at, 2 minutes to midnight in the election?
No, mate, if you guys were so good, why aren't you Prime Minister, Bill?
Oh, OK. It's
I tell you what, Jane, I will do better than Peter Dutton will tonight. Bang.
OK.
Warren Mundine, I'll bring you in
Game
here. Did Anthony Albanese run a good campaign, as Bill is saying, or did he get lucky because Dutton didn't campaign well?
Look, I'm a realist, and I deal with the realities of politics, and I see where the numbers go, and I look at the data, and I drill down into the data and that. And Jane was right. You're fighting a 100-year battle. It hasn't happened in 100 years. So that was where we started from, in the background of that. The government is always in charge of the money and always in charge of things. Yes, and I do agree with my good old mate Bill that Albanese was disciplined. He is the most disciplined liar I've ever seen run a Prime Minister's campaign. The lies that just poured out of his mouth was just incredible.
Bit early in the night for that.
You're just sitting there, you're seeing people out there. You'd be very hard to find a person who isn't hurting out in the suburbs, in the regional and remote areas of Australia. The economy, small business collapses. You're just seeing so much pain, and we've just seen the future of Australia's energy policy in the Iberian Peninsula with Portugal and Spain, where you go for 100% of renewables and the whole 60 million people were without a power.
But Warren, if people were hurting as much as you're saying they are, and they are out there, why didn't Peter Dutton get on top of that? I mean, we ran a debate in this very studio here where Albanese was a clear winner on the issue of cost of living and not Peter Dutton. So what did the coalition, what did you guys do wrong?
Well, certainly, if you respond to the cost of living with handouts, band-aids on bullet holes, well, that's going to appeal to people that really are struggling and want something immediately, which is why we offered 25 cents off petrol prices, off per litre of petrol. That would actually be immediate relief, and then a $1,200 tax back when you
Okay,
when you tax return at the end of the middle of the year.
See if that's resonated
cost of
tonight or
living
not.
relief.
Yeah.
That's cost of living relief.
Sorry to cut you off, but before we just go and get some seats, a story's just dropped in the press that, Jane, you've been contacting colleagues in different states on Friday asking for face-to-face and meetings and phone calls after the election. 5 senior party sources have confirmed that. Are you...
Do you know, this is such a beat up. That's pastoral care. I ring candidates that I have campaigned with and say, hey, how you going? How you feeling? Shall we have a chat afterwards? See how you're doing? That's what we do.
And that's why you should be in the House of Reps, because you, amongst the sort of galaxy of the Liberal campaign, you can at least make the case. That doesn't mean we always agree. They need you in the Reps, because the Liberals have got a women problem in the House of Reps. Let's be truthful.
All right,
Okay.
let's see if that eventuates or not. It's all about the numbers,
the
so
Reps.
let's start talking about the numbers now. Hugh Whitfield, you got more coming in. Let's go to you.
Yeah, Michael, Nat, let's take a look at the tally board, because at the moment 7 News is projecting that Labor has won 20 seats, the Coalition 9. Now, you can see all those little red squares. That's the starting point for the Labor Party. 78 seats in the House of Representatives. And as we award seats, project seats over the night, we'll colour in those bars. So you get an idea that Labor is already well ahead with that sea of red. And over here, the Coalition with just a handful at this stage. We're going to break down the seats over here at the big wall, and this is where we can take a look at seats individually. Let's go to Fowler, because there is a fascinating situation developing in Fowler. Now, Di Lee won it off Christina Keneally, who was the Labor candidate 3 years ago. We've got just one booth reporting out of Fowler at this stage, but Tuli, the ALP candidate, is ahead. So Di Lee could have a big fight on her hands tonight. We're going to wait to see more information come in from those booths, though. Let's go to New England. This is a seat that we have already projected a winner in. It is Barnaby Joyce's seat in northern New South Wales. He is on track to claim the seat of New England yet again on the primary vote. But there is a fascinating story developing in other parts of regional Australia. Let's go to Maranoa. Now, we are saying that the Nationals leader, David Littleproud, is on track. We are saying that that is an LNP hold. However, the One Nation vote is sizeable. We've got about a dozen booths reporting in Maranoa. That One Nation vote, more than a dozen by the looks of it, probably about 25 booths reporting now in Maranoa. Now, David Littleproud is ahead in all of those booths. You can see they are towns and communities where we've got figures from. You're going to see tonight the colour of the leader in those booths and the size of the primary votes. There's some really big votes for David Littleproud, but look at that One Nation vote, 12.5% at this stage. Labor sitting on 16. We've projected it for David Littleproud. But down in the Riverina, it's a similar situation. Michael McCormack, the former Nationals leader. Now, it's likely that he's going to win that. We haven't projected him to win it at this stage. But if we take a look at the heat map, again, he is leading in every booth. But that One Nation vote is pretty big, 12%. Where do those preferences go? Well, they generally spray around quite a bit. The Nationals in regional Australia will be hoping that the One Nation vote flows through to them and they can hang on to the seats that they've got. But it's a big third-party vote in the regions.
Yep, that was predicted, wasn't it? The One Nation vote being way bigger than the last election, 2022. Also part of our coverage tonight, the Situation Room, where party insiders, politicians and experts are crunching the numbers, working those phones.
Tim McMillan is there for us this evening. Tim, you've got a stacked room there. Take it away.
Yeah, it's a motley crew in here, all right. This is where the party's at tonight, and it is the Situation Room, but before too long it may well become a panic room for some people. We've got a whole host of party insiders and some pollies as well. I've got a couple here with me just now, the Federal Labor member for Perth, Patrick Gorman, also Assistant Minister to the Prime Minister, and Senator Michaelia Cash, Liberal Senator for Western Australia as well. Look, both of you, I have to say, I've been sort of observing you from afar tonight. You both seem pretty up and about, but of course, one of you, the mood is going to turn by the end of the night. Who's that going to be?
Well, my mood is very good because I know that we've still got another 45 minutes of polls open in Western Australia.
True.
So Michaelia and I are here to give the final pitches as to why people should vote Labor or waste their vote with the Liberal Party.
Final pitches are done.
45 minutes. If you're in Western Australia, you're watching Channel 7, run down there, make sure you get your vote in.
Yeah, all right.
Every
If they haven't heard
litre,
it now,
25
they're
cents
never
cheaper
gonna hear
if you vote for the Liberal candidate. In a cost of living crisis, every litre, 25 cents cheaper.
Well, tell me what you're hearing already. Like,
Yeah.
where is your mood at and based on what?
So basically, our ground game has been very good, and that's been pre-poll feedback on the ground across Australia. People have been very receptive, in particular, to our cost of living message.
So the polls are wrong?
The polls that we see every day are national polls. I think what you're going to see tonight is 150 by-elections. I think that it's going to be a seat-by-seat count. I think there might be some seats tonight which we don't even know on the night because you're having a three-cornered contest.
Yep.
I think also what you see is the votes that are going to get counted shortly are today's votes. They will favour the Labor Party, they always do. Pre-poll, on the other hand, it'll come in later tonight, and that generally favours us. So I think 150 by-elections tonight, seat by seat, and I think, yes, we could be in for some
I want a by-election.
Strap yourselves in. It could be a very, very long night. We'll come to you again many more times before the night is through. But thank you very much. I'll let you go back and sit with your advisors. Michael, back to you.
All right, Tim, look forward to it. Thank you very much. I can see Tanya and Bill madly scribbling. They're getting details in here. Mark Riley on the end, though. Do you agree with Michaelia Cash there that we're going to see a nationwide by-election tonight versus one uniform trend of polls or swings?
Purely yes. There are different elections in every seat, and local candidates who work hard, who do the door knocking, who support the community groups, who do all that really tough stuff of politics, on the ground stuff, can do very well. So the national polling tells us really a picture that it can be applied generally but not specifically. That's the point. So there will be pockets of Australia where the vote will differ from that for particular reasons, local reasons mostly. Good candidates against bad candidates, local issues like wind farms, offshore wind farms, a big issue in some seats, about roads, all sorts of things, service deliveries, where are the urgent care clinics coming, what impact has that had on local communities? People on the road, when we've been visiting these electorates over the past 5 weeks, are in favour, as you would think, of having a GP on the extended hours where you can wander in and take your kid when they've got a bit of bronchitis or strep and not have to line up at an ER. So all these things really feed into local campaigns. 150, some of them, as you said, we can call now, others, and some will surprise us. There'll be local issues that really energise people tonight.
Yeah, and that's what people want, because they want their local person to have listened to them, don't they, and not gone on the national vote. Let's look, Bill, and Tanya, let's look at the seats where if Peter Dutton is to have done a good job, this election.
Bill's going to refute the premise of everything of that tonight.
I know.
The opposition leaders club. We'll see how he goes.
Exactly. No, but we were talking outside. Let's look at the seats in those outer Melbourne, outer Sydney electorates that we have to watch to determine whether he could be doing better than the national polls say.
Well, for the punters watching tonight, having your election parties or waiting for the football to start or just want to know it in 30 seconds. If Labor does well in seats like Deakin and Menzies, Liberals, that's a problem, let's be honest. If the Liberals were to do well in a seat like Dunkley, which I really don't believe, then that's bad for us. So there's some seats which point to trends. Yes, there are a lot of individual contests, but then there's the seats which show the trend, don't they? And so I'll be watching Menzies and Deakin to see what happens there. And I'll be watching, say, Dunkley or, in Sydney, maybe Sally Sitter, who's the member for Reid, or Jerome Laxale and Bennelong, see how Labor needs to hold those seats, which I think they will. But they're the sort of seats which might give us some of the clues.
All right,
I reckon there's a litmus test seat for Labor too, and I think it's Patterson. I think Meryl Swanson is in real trouble there. That is a really interesting seat because it's one of those ones where the offshore wind farms outside of Nelson Bay are a real issue. You have the very popular Mayor of Maitland running there, the biggest populous city within the electorate, as an independent. You have a Liberal who's also well known and runs hard. And you've got One Nation there. And of course, the preference deal between the Liberals and One Nation means that those preferences will go to the Liberal. If Labor wins Patterson, Labor could get majority. That's my view.
All right, the thing I enjoy about this evening is I love seeing what's coming through on your phones. I know there are individual contacts and polling booths, the people that you have on the ground. Tanya, any early information? And Jane, likewise, anything that you're getting in?
Look, the booths are very small, but I have to say there's a few there. A couple of small booths in Leichhardt with an 11% swing to Labor, a couple of small booths in Longman, about 7%. Fowler, again, these are very early results. They're not going to be like this later on in the night, but one booth's come in 9.8% swing to Labor. I would be so absolutely delighted if we saw those results, because it's very hard to knock off an independent after one term. It's like the last time an independent lost after one term was 1951. So if we take Fowler back with our fantastic candidate, Tu Le, that will be a really good indication that we're going well tonight.
Michaelia Cash made a good point earlier too, and Tanya's right to hedge that the vote on the day is going to be different in character to the pre-poll. The pre-poll trends conservative and particularly postals, and the vote on the day normally trends progressive.
Jane, anything
is
Jane, sorry, Tanya, you.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, the reason we're getting these early numbers is because they're very small booths to count.
Okay.
So they also give you a false view, because you're talking about some of these booths have got, dozens of people or a couple of hundred people.
Tanya, this is about the 15-minute window early in a count and a broadcast where you get to get those numbers in quickly and it starts to shift all over the place. So, Jane, anything putting a smile on your face that you're receiving?
Look, very small booths and very small samples, but it sounds like Lindsay is doing very well. It's, quite safe there. Places like Mount Druitt, and we're also seeing some positive signs coming out of Wannon. Obviously, for the Liberals, this is a tale of two elections. We're fighting against Teals and independents, and we're also fighting against the Labor Party, and they are two very different campaigns and very different fights. I do think that we'll see some independents unseated after a first term tonight.
All right, Warren, come on in. You were about to say something.
There's some really good stuff coming in. Patterson's good. I spent a few days up there working in Patterson and Hunter. Hunter's looking good. Look, and I put a caveat on it. It is early days. It's early numbers, early days. And look, and I'm looking at the figures from Parramatta. I'm feeling good. I spent a few days out in Parramatta and I've seen how those things are moving along. Again, the caveat goes on. Early days.
And so, Riles, just on the counting, they count the votes from today first, do they? And then the pre-polls? Is that how we go
So
through?
pre-polls, as I understand it, are batched but not counted before 6 o'clock. So they're separated and they're ready to go. We'll get those around 8:30, and that will make a big difference to the count.
Yep.
We'll get a
And that's
big
quite early
difference.
for pre-poll. We don't normally get pre-polls quite that early.
No, that's right.
So, yeah,
They
that'll be interesting.
actually,
quite a dump of those
this
numbers.
year, this election, they've been taking them to a central place where they're going to be counting them on the night much more than they have in previous
much more
elections.
efficient.
Yeah.
All right, Hugh, it's starting to churn on through where you are at the power board. Let's have a look at you.
Yeah, Michael, Tanya Plibersek talking about the seat of Fowler, where Labor might be quite continent. Let's drill into southwest Sydney and take a look. Tu Le, the ALP candidate, is ahead of Di Lee, the sitting independent at this stage. Of course, these are very early numbers, but if we take a look at the heat map, we can take a look at that booth data and see where those booths are coming in. And it's just two booths reporting at this stage, but Tu Le is ahead in one of them and Di Lee is ahead in the other. The seat of Hunter that we heard our panellists talking about, that is a seat with a vast number of candidates who all thought they were in the hunt. And look at that at this stage. Now, we've got 5% of the vote counted. Dan Repicoli, the sitting ALP candidate, is ahead, but One Nation is in second place with nearly 17% of the vote. Sue Gilroy, the Nationals candidate, sitting on about 15. These booths are going to come in thick and fast, a seat that stretches from Cessnock up to Singleton. Let's also go to Dixon, because we saw the Prime Minister's seat earlier, where we do project that Anthony Albanese will hold on to Graindler. Early figures out of Dixon in southeast Queensland at this stage. It is very tight between Peter Dutton and Ailey France, the ALP candidate who is running for a third time. She's chipped away at Peter Dutton's margin at each election, and this election she is going to push Peter Dutton right to the line. It is a seat we're going to be keeping a very close eye on tonight.
Okay, that is fascinating because, of course, Peter Dutton holding that seat by 1.7% margin. We will keep an eye on that. Right now, we've got Clive Palmer about to come into Election Central. I think the first question most Australians want answered from him is, will the texts stop anytime soon?
It's been a good spam campaign.
Yeah.
There it is. It's still coming through.
Definitely ask him that. And where is Mr H. Fong? Let's go now to Tasmanian Senator Jackie Lambie. Jackie,
she's just dropped out. That's a shame. Stand by. That'll happen all the...
But it's yes, we can.
No, I got him.
There you are.
There you go, Jackie. Tell us how you're feeling. What are you seeing in the first numbers coming through?
No control here in the Lambie farm. Okay. Well, I haven't seen any Senate results coming through yet, so we're all just, on the edge of our seats going, what do those first lot of Senate seats look like? So, and obviously there looks like some fairly big upset. Looks like Anne Urquhart will run away with it in Braddon. I did say I reckon Bridget Archer was going to be in a bit of trouble. I said that late last year. So very interesting, and I imagine that Beck will take lines down here. So that's what's going on. Julie Collins is the one to watch. What's going on down there? So Franklin, we weren't expecting that in Franklin. So she's got a bit of ground to make up. I'm assuming she might get it from those city boos. But seriously, Peter George down there is making mincemeat out of her. It's great.
Are you worried about the competition in your space there? You got Pauline Hanson's daughter on the run there?
Look, I've just been out there. I just get on with the job, mate. We've still got we've got electoral office to run. Still, people are still going through tough times out there. That doesn't stop for the 5 weeks. So, quite frankly, we're really busy, which has been really good for me. It doesn't feel like my head's been done in this time. I had quite a bit of distraction. We've got a bit of stuff going on with the AFL Stadium, the salmon. Obviously, got a few things on the run down here that I really want to get finished off. So we've been working really hard on that and hoping that I get back in the Senate. Get back under that privilege, mate. I have a lot to say in the first few weeks I'm back, hopefully.
Hey, Jackie, Mark Riley here. But got a bit nasty down there. Pauline was saying some pretty ordinary things about you. Very personal. That you're voting with the Greens, you're voting with Labor, you're not a true independent. What's going on between you and Pauline?
Yeah. I don't run into the toxic stuff. I won't do it. I wish everyone the very best of luck. It takes a lot of courage to stand as a candidate. I don't care which team you're playing for. It is actually a big step to put your hand up and have a run and have a serious run at it. So I'm not getting into that nasty stuff. I just don't want to. I wish Lee the very best, her daughter, like every other candidate running here in Tasmania and over the country. So that's the way to do things. That's leadership. We don't need to be getting toxic and throwing stuff like that out. I won't play it. If you're doing that at me, that's because you're not selling policy. You probably don't have any. So maybe sell your policies before going at me. That'd be the idea.
So has it been one of the... Oh, cheers all round there. Jack, has it been one of the harder campaigns for you, being up against Lee Hanson?
No, I haven't even looked at Pauline. I just do the job down here. I don't put her as a distraction. I've got a job to do. I'm hoping that I've certainly done enough over the last 10 years. The guys are going to give me another 6 years down here and give me another shot at it just to finish a few things off, get those recommendations of veterans from the Royal Commission, make sure that's done as quickly as possible. I want to see that done in the first 2 or 3 years. I really want to see that put away to rest so veterans can get on with their lives, of course. And like I said, we've got a huge fight down here with the salmon in the stadium, so she's all back on Monday, hopefully, as long as I get in. But nothing changes. She's right in the newspapers on Monday, I'm telling you. I have a lot that needs to be done down here, so we're moving. Another stadium rally next Saturday down in Hobart. It's all on.
Hey, unfinished business, Jackie Lambie. You're still onto it. It's good. Yeah, exactly. You're not giving up tonight.
Yeah.
Mark Riley?
Well, Jackie, I was interested in what you were saying about Bridget Archer and Bass. What's going on there? Jess Teasdale for Labor is running there. I thought Bridget was the perfect member in the way that she was a Liberal and then she was a kind of an anti-Liberal. She covered both sides. But what's going on in that seat?
Yeah, I think because it's not Morrison, she did a lot of going out at Morrison, so she's been a bit quiet, Bridge, a bit quieter than usual because we've seen her crossing the floor and that. She hasn't sort of done that this time around, so it wasn't Scott. So I think she just sort of been a bit quieter out there. So I don't know what her campaign's been like on the ground, but when I was up in Bass the other week, they said, I reckon Labor's going to snatch this, and I thought I could probably see that about 3 months ago. So we'll just see how it goes. I mean, Bridget's obviously a great representative up there in Bass, but yeah, I don't like her luck tonight.
And your tip for Braddon is Labor in Lyons. You reckon that the anti-salmon candidate there is going to shake things up?
No, Franklin.
Well,
Franklin,
no,
sorry,
not really,
Franklin.
because they're the Liberal and Labor in bed together on the salmon. We know how they work. So, you know, but I think Anne Urquhart's been out there on the ground. She's been working her butt off since well before Christmas. She has really been out there, I'm telling you. I don't miss her anywhere. So she's been out there for, she is well known down here. You know, she was part of the workers' union and stuff. She's been union, so she is well known, and I think Anne will snatch it home tonight. So, I mean, I don't know the other guy very well. Anne's been a great representative for Tasmania, and I'm sure she's just concentrating on Braddon. She'll make one hell of a member. She's in my backyard, so good luck to Anne.
Okay.
All right, Jackie, good luck tonight. You've got a lot of business still to do by the sound of it. Thanks for joining us this evening. Appreciate it.
Okay, Senator James Paterson is at Liberal HQ in Brisbane. Evening to you. Early message that you're getting from scrutineers.
Look, I think it really is very early days. I know that's a boring answer, but it is a truthful one. Our internal Liberal Party research during the campaign showed a really big behavioural difference between people who vote early, either at pre-poll or in postal votes, and people who vote on the day. We think in some seats it could be worth up to 8%, the difference between early voting and on the day voting. So really we won't be able to form any meaningful conclusions about how the count is going until quite late in the night when some of those pre-poll booths start to come in. Postals, there'll only be a very tiny sample counted tonight, but we can make some assumptions about that.
James, you're staying with Peter Dutton tonight. I mean, he's in a fight for his own seat at this stage.
Yeah, look, I think that's very, very early days. Peter is a very experienced marginal seat campaigner. He's held that seat for 25 years, since 2001. They've come after him many times before and he's survived. But I have to say, in this election, they've thrown everything at it. Labor has spent a lot of money in Dixon, and he's also had the Climate 200 funded independent hitting him as well as a national advertising program that was primarily devoted to tearing him down personally. So, look, that's going to have an effect, but Peter has never taken his community for granted, and it's way too early to be saying anything meaningful about that.
Yeah, the Prime Minister there in Dixon, I think, on the first day and the last day of the campaign, if I'm right, Riles. James Paterson, what you were just saying that there's a difference between the people who vote early and those who vote on the day. Exactly what are you seeing?
So it's an emerging trend that over the last couple of elections, people who vote early tend to be more likely to be coalition voters, and people who vote on the day tend to be Labor and Green voters. And that's a trend that seems to have grown as the numbers of early voting has grown. I mean, it was particularly evident in the Queensland state election, where there was just a huge divergence between on-the-day voting and pre-poll voting. And we're expecting that to be the same. We've been in the field over the last couple of weeks, as you'd expect, doing polling, and there were asked people who have already voted how they voted, and there was a big jump in the number of people voting Liberal and National in those early voters.
All right, James, thanks for that. Jane Hume, I know you've got something to add to that.
Yeah, well, we had about 51.3% of Victorians that voted at pre-poll this year, which was quite extraordinary. And on top of that, 22 of the top 30 seats that applied for postal vote were from Victoria, and more than that, I think it was the top 8 were also in Victoria for the ones that returned postal votes. So this is an unusual trend that we're seeing, I think, emerge specifically out of Victoria. Can I talk to you about a couple of things in Tasmania, though, which just to follow on from Jackie's. From the things that Jackie said there. Lyons is really an interesting one. Obviously, we've had a candidate down there, Susie Bauer, who has worked incredibly hard over 2 elections. She's a very, very appealing candidate. But that competition changed up dramatically when Labor put Rebecca White into that seat. Obviously, Rebecca being the former leader of Labor down there in Victoria, in Tasmania. That probably did change things up pretty dramatically, and we have then become sort of behind on that primary vote. Interestingly, there were some suggestions that there were deals done there. The reason why Anne Urquhart went to Braddon was so that if Miss White lost, then she potentially might go to the Senate because there'd be a casual vacancy there. There's also an understanding that Miss White has demanded that in order to switch from state politics to federal politics, that she would automatically go into cabinet under a Labor government. So, you know, I'll let Labor take care of that one. Bass and Braddon have been interesting. I was on the polls both with Mel Hingston and with Bridget Archer. With Bridget Archer in Launceston, I did not feel the baseball bats coming out. In fact, I felt she was actually very popular there. And Mel Hingston, wow, I mean, he was overwhelmed in Braddon. So he's a great candidate. So
all right, well, let's see as more of the numbers roll through. We better introduce, because our viewers at home would be seeing the wide shot here. Clive Palmer has joined us this evening. Clive, thanks for being on the panel.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks to invite me.
All right, now, you've been the great disruptor in this campaign. There's been absolutely no missing your spam messages on all of our mobile devices, and your ad, there it is, it's still coming through from Western Australia. You're still getting them. There's certainly no missing the ads on the television. What's your take on this evening?
Well, I think I've been looking across at the swings overall across the country, and it seems that, unfortunately, Labor's getting a lot more swings than Liberals. And I very rarely agree with Bill Shorten, but I certainly agree with his comments tonight. And I think what we're going to see is a Albanese government return to the majority, and I think there could be a loss of Liberal seats between 10 and 15 seats.
A majority Labor government,
I think that's what we're looking at, yeah. And I think if you look at the swings, even though this is early days and the early numbers, the majority of the swings are to the Labor Party. If you add up all the swings that are up there, you can have a look on your computers, you can see Labor's winning probably 6-1. There are occasionally swings to the LNP in certain seats, probably for local things, but overall the trend is for a return of a majority Albanese government, with the Liberal Party being decimated. I'd say, this is a bit of a disruptive statement. I don't know if Bill Shorten will like it, but I have to say that...
It's all right, mate. I don't agree with much you say, but it's all right. You keep rolling.
Okay, I think that...
spend enough money.
Okay, I think that Peter Dutton's performance is probably the worst since Federation, as far as a Conservative leader goes.
Clive, what was your objective in this campaign? I mean, last time we heard you spent $100 and some odd million and got about 10 back.
Yeah.
I mean, you're doing your dough. What's the point?
Well, I think we've got 130,000 Australians homeless at the moment. We've got 3.7 million Australians are having trouble with food at the moment. Those sort of issues are really issues to bring for the debate. And I think we put forward a lot of issues through our advertising, other things we think that should be addressed by the political classes in general. So having a debate, having different ideas, having disagreements is not a bad thing for a democracy.
It's an expensive debate, though, Clive, to not get a lot of actual result or representation, which I think is what Mark Riley's asking.
Well, if that's your goal, it's a problem. But if your goal is to stimulate debate and to be here tonight, for example, to invest in the Seven Network with our advertisements, all those things are achieved, to keep journalists employed. If that's a bad outcome, I don't know how you could possibly
You're an altruist. Well, I missed that about your character.
Doing it for you guys.
I'm just saying that's not a bad...
Bill, do you want to come in here on Clive's big spend on creating a debate and a conversation? Is that what it is?
There's no doubt, Clive, you are a formidable communicator. There's no doubt about that at all. But for Conservatives, you're a wrecker. You split their vote. You certainly had an impact in 2019, unarguably. But, you know, it's a giant billionaire's vanity project. And, you know, you're welcome to spend your money on whatever you want. It's a free country. But, you know, I'm glad you're so motivated about the homeless and everything else. I'll just be interested to see what you do on Monday to look after them. That's all.
It also makes no sense to raise issues like homelessness and then direct preferences to a party that actually abandoned our homelessness reduction target when we were last elected and really has done nothing.
Who have we directed preferences to like that?
Well, to the Liberals and Nationals over the years.
No, the preference in this election has gone to the Labor Party, your party, who've got our preferences, and that's one of the reasons why there'll be a 15% swing, because we think the country needs to look at some of these issues. And as far as doing anything, I donated 10 million meals to Food Bank before the election to feed Australians personally.
No, that's good. And you're the only person on the panel with $1 billion, so it's good you're giving some back.
Well,
this country helped make you rich, and I'm glad you give a little bit back. But
well, we should do that,
yeah, but, you know, anyway,
God
whatever.
Bless you, Bill.
Whatever. God bless you too.
Can I ask on behalf of the country, Clive, could you just give us your mobile number? Because I reckon there's about 15 million people that want to send you a message about 3 a.m.
Well, we've had a lot of messages, but I know it's a disappointment for the Seven Network not to get the advertising from the SMSs, but you have got enough in this election, be sure of that, right?
Yeah, and that's what it's about, mate.
You've had plenty of ads from the Labor Party and the Liberal Party too, so it's a good thing. But
you win with the texts, though, Clive. Come on.
Well, Probably, but of course it's the Liberal and Labor Party that made it legal to do it. It's the Liberal and Labor Party that put
Oh, no, I get you're just a victim. I get it. Sorry.
No, he's got a good point.
I'm saying that I'm just doing what the Liberal and Labor Party, they set the system up.
Changing the laws, I think, is what we need to talk about on Monday, changing the tax laws. Just before we go and talk about the needle, Jane, what did you think about when Clive says Peter Dutton has run the worst campaign for, decades?
Well, I think that Clive would say that, wouldn't they? As would Bill and...
But the voters are saying it, Jane. That's the problem. What we say ultimately, what we say doesn't matter, but the voters are saying it.
Fat Lady hasn't sung yet, Bill, particularly in our home state. You know that. So let's see how we go.
But even in our home state with the challenges of the state government...
Challenges of the state government. The canary in the coal mine for the rest of the country of what a bad Labor government can do after a decade of power. Yes, but your problem is, even with the challenges of the Victorian government, you're still tanking. Have you seen Jacinta Allen's personal popularity
But she's not running for Prime Minister.
Doesn't matter. They know.
We'll thresh that one out at the next state election.
Actually, you could run for the opposition of Victoria. You'd do better than some of the roosters they've got there now.
I'm a very happy senator.
Yeah, very, I'm sure.
Clive, a question for you. Is this sport for you? I mean, last time round, you torpedoed Bill's campaign, or 2019 rather. This time round, you're saying you're hurting the Liberal Party.
No, you should take some credit, Clive. You should take some credit.
Well, I thought at that time was the best thing for the country, that I've been a long-term supporter of Conservative parties. There's a track record since the Bjelke-Petersen days. And I thought in that particular time that Labor had policies I thought would damage the country. So...
they don't now?
I think...
Unrealised capital gains? How's that going to affect you?
Well, it won't affect me because I haven't got a superannuation fund, unfortunately. I have to look after myself.
But, I'll come after you.
Again, I got the violin out.
Bill's got the violin.
Affect me.
All right.
It might be okay.
Clive, hold that thought for a minute, because we do want to get to numbers. In each of our suburbs and neighbourhoods, I know people watching it are trying to work out what's happening in their neighbourhoods. Hugh, at the Power Board, you've got some of those coming through.
Yeah, Michael, let's take a look at one of the, if not the most marginal seat in the country. On the south coast of New South Wales, the seat of Gilmore, where Andrew Constance, the high-profile former state Liberal government minister, is taking another shot at trying to win Gilmore. Now, at this stage, it looks like Fiona Phillips, with 15% of the vote counted, might even increase her margin in Gilmore. If we take a look at the booth data in Gilmore, where we look to see where the votes are coming in, and you can see that Fiona Phillips is winning pretty much every booth right along the coast. Just 3 booths where Andrew Constance is ahead. Fiona Phillips would want to be feeling fairly confident tonight, but still a lot more votes to come. Up in Sydney, the seat of Bennelong. Now, this is John Howard's old seat that Maxine McHugh won, that John Alexander won. Jerome Laxale is looking fairly good at this stage, despite a big redistribution that took in a whole heap of what might have been considered to be Liberal areas down this end of the Lane Cove River. At this stage, that is not flowing through. What was before the election day was notionally a Liberal seat. That is not being replicated in the figures that we're seeing at this stage, with 13% of the vote in. Let's go back up to Queensland, because Peter Dutton's seat of Dickson is looking very, very interesting. We have nearly 10% of the vote in, and Ailey France, taking another shot at this seat, is ahead by a good 400 votes. Peter Dutton at this stage has taken a 10% hit to his early vote. Ailey France is ahead by 3.1. And look at this, the independent, Ellie Smith, who has run somewhat of a Climate 200 campaign. The thought would be that her preferences will flow through to Ailey France. And I've got to say, Peter Dutton would be sweating hard right now, guys.
Yeah, exactly. Hugh, Bill, you have just been saying this to me. Dickson and Bonner.
Yeah, I mean, well, Dickson, there's still votes to count. You know, Peter Dutton's got a very strong profile, but Ailey France has now run again. She's outstanding. So I reckon that's, if I was Peter Dutton, you'd rather be Ailey France. But in Bonner, which is held by the Liberals, Cara Cook's our candidate. And one of the tells in an election is where the Prime Minister spends his time, or the leader of the party. And the fact is that Albo's been to Bonner. You know, big shout out to all the campaign workers in Bonner. It's always been elusive, but let's fingers crossed tonight.
He was one of the campaign workers the other day. He was handing out on one side as the electors were coming in the pre-poll, and Ross Faster was passing out, handing out on the other side. It was a very convivial exchange, actually. Ross is a gentleman.
Oh, Ross
and
is
he
nice.
said, nice fella. And he welcomed it. But I think the Prime Minister also has a cousin who lives there. Ross knows the family. It was a very interesting...
politics is local.
Indeed. And,
well, Bill, based on what you're saying there, Mark Riley, why don't we get you to go for a wander? Perhaps it is time to have a look at our election needle, which we've obviously been running in our newses now for some months now. It might well be on the move, given Bill Shorten, particularly the two seats that you're talking about. It's been sitting at about a lean win for Albo, and you look at the bottom of the screen there, we're projecting the 7 News projection 30 for the Labor Party at the moment. Mark Riley, where do we think it should be moving at the moment?
Well, we've had it in the middle of lean, Michael, for about a week now, week and a little bit. And what we're hearing, so when you take into account the early votes, and these are early, there's 10% in some booths, and we've said that there is a difference between the votes that are cast today and the votes that have been cast before the election. Don't forget, that's almost half of the total votes. This may change coming into 8 o'clock tonight, but the way the trends are with the early count, let's move the needle, I'd say, to the edge of lean, close to likely at the moment. I would say about as close to likely as you can get on the current count. May move back, might not. If that trend that we're seeing now is borne out in the pre-polls around 8:30, that's going much closer to the edge of likely and probably into likely pretty soon. So that's where it is at the moment, and on the basis of what Clive Palmer has said about what he's seeing in the voting trends, Michael.
And Clive, do you think that's where it should be sitting right about now?
I think it should be in the middle of likely, because if we have a look at the trends and of the swings...
Come on, over you come.
OK. I think if we look at the trends and how they've been going, I think it's got to be somewhere around Albanese's glasses.
There you go.
All right. Clive Palmer's got it in a likely win for Anthony Albanese. Jane Hume, you might have a different view on that.
I absolutely do, because we haven't even started talking about those seats like Aston, Bendigo, Bullwinkle, Chisholm, Hawke, Lingiari. We haven't spoken about it all. McEwen. We mentioned Patterson, but Werriwa seems to have popped up on the radar, which I think is a really important one. Ryan in Brisbane. These are all seats that we have had in our sights for a considerable period of time, where we've seen the shifts taking place, and we haven't even started talking about
Hugh Whitfield's got a call on one of the seats right now, though. I think the seat of Aston. Hugh?
Yeah, Michael, let's take a look at the seat of Aston, which was the seat that the Liberal Party won in 2022. Mary Doyle won it in a 2023 by-election. Jane was just talking about it. It appears that the Labor vote is holding up at this stage. 7 News projects that Mary Doyle will return to Parliament for a full term. If we take a look at the booth-by-booth data for Aston, we'll be able to see where Mary Doyle is ahead, and you can see that northern part of the electorate, Mary Doyle is winning pretty well, and it's the southern part of the electorate where Manny Cicciello is hoping to grow that vote. But that big 13% for the Greens, you'd have to think that will flow through, and to be honest, the Liberal candidate doesn't really have many places to find any preferences once we get to that. Let's go up to far north Queensland, because Leichhardt is a seat that the Liberal Nationals were hoping to hold on to. Warren Entsch retired, and that opened the door for Jeremy Neal to represent the LNP and Matt Smith, the former Cairns Taipan NBL player, to run for Labor. Now, it's a seat that Labor has held over the years. It's a seat that the Liberals have held over the years. Jeremy Neal looks to be in a fair bit of trouble at this stage, because Matt Smith is well ahead, and there's that big Green vote sitting there as well that naturally would flow through to the Labor candidate, with 12% counted, and then in fourth place, One Nation, which may flow through in part to the LNP, but that looks like heading towards an LNP loss, an ALP gain at this early stage.
Yeah, they are. It's interesting because, as we said, and Michaelia said, there are 150 tiny elections. They're all by-elections, but some seats matter more than others. And as we talked about Aston, which made history, the first time an incumbent government won a seat off an opposition in 100 years. You just said that's a disaster. This was a litmus test for the Liberals, didn't you, Bill?
Well, Mary Doyle and Albo made history by winning that seat after Alan Tudge left. But that would be a seat which the Liberals would expect, if there was something on, that seat to fall.
They've had it in their column for weeks.
So that's an issue. And if they're not scoring, if they're not taking off paint in Aston, then they've got won't be the longest Liberal Party night.
Well,
And
and
that's
just on that,
particularly-
we are seeing in the samples that we're getting from pre-poll, 10 to 12% swings towards us. So very, very different from
See,
the
that's,
votes on the
that's the
Okay.
point.
That's
yeah.
the if,
So-
if they're not taking. But the point is, you would agree that if you don't win Aston, that's a problem.
Well, we've got plenty in our sights other than Aston, but Aston was
okay.
certainly one that we had in mind. And Manny Cicello has been a really terrific candidate out there.
Jane, you
That's
mentioned...
very
Jane was saying a minute ago how badly the Victorian state government is doing, and that's going to be a
has played
factor
out.
in these seats. Well, I think that Aston result is exactly what Mark and Bill are saying. That's a disaster. If you, for you as Liberals, if you don't pick up Aston, I don't know where you think you're going to. Where you're going to go. But there's been some really interesting results coming in. Leichhardt, that result is a terrific result. Our candidate in Leichhardt, Matt Smith, he is fantastic. You've got the sitting member leaving, Warren Entsch is going. Matt Smith, former Taipans player, fantastic personality, really very hard-working. That's one we're very hopeful of. We're seeing some interesting trends coming in as well. A lot of the seats with the large Chinese Australian populations, like Reid, Bennelong, Banks, Chisholm, we're seeing good, strong primary swings to Labor and away from the coalition in those seats. And that will be a factor in seats like Bonner that we were talking about a minute ago, and possibly Brisbane as well. We're looking at seats like Robertson, Lyons, Hunter, Macquarie, that we were watching very closely. We started the night with these seats too close to call. The early results from those are very positive. Even Griffith, Griffith would be a fantastic seat for us to win. We're looking at that as a leaning towards Labor now. We had an absolutely amazing candidate in Griffith, Renee Coffey. She's a local, growing up in the area. She's worked for not-for-profit organisations all her life. She's a local mum. She's a Sunday school teacher in the seat. It's Kevin Rudd's old seat. This is one where Max Chandler-Mather, I think, will... he's got quite a margin there, but...
It's about 10%.
It's 10.5%, but... I think this is really one to watch later in the night.
One I was looking at as well, only because Jane mentioned it, the seat of Werriwa. I don't know if we can bring up some details there. That's one that I know Labor insiders have been a little worried about. The traditional, Labor seats, Gough Whitlam's old seat, the Libs have been putting it in their maybe category. What are we looking at there with some of the trends? The seat of Werriwa as well.
Slight swing towards Labor, but about 11,000 votes counted there. Yeah, look, it's interesting. The demographic is changing in Werriwa. It's a very multicultural seat. It's certainly changing. You think about everything that's going on out there in Western Sydney with the new airport. That region where we spent a lot of time there through the campaign, that is set to take off like one of those planes that'll come in there. That's a boom area of Australia, and those communities are really looking at good times ahead. But I think that is a litmus test seat for Labor to see whether it represents the change in demographic of that area. A bit early at the moment.
Jan, you concerned about that?
Look, Anne Stanley is a fantastic, hard-working local candidate, very decent human being. She's still got a good, strong start there. I'm certainly not worried at this stage, but I don't want to take anything for granted either.
The one thing that's interesting about Werriwa as well, and we'll see this in areas around Melbourne and Sydney. Don't forget that these are the key battlegrounds. These outer urban commuter belts and mortgage belts. So if Peter Dutton has a path tonight, it's through seats like Werriwa. He needs to win those because that's where the suite of policies that he's put out in this election, that's where they're designed to impact.
Mike Riley, let's just go back to the Situation Room with Tim McMillan for a minute, getting some... No,
he's not ready. But that's interesting. On Werriwa, Dutton launched his campaign there, didn't he, Riles, in Werriwa? And that was... they're those policies that people need to drive cars a lot. It's the fuel excise cut that people were, Jane, you were hoping that would affect people. Cost of living is the number one topic I know in this country, but if you live out in those outer suburbs,
congestion, so
and
many
out
people
at
talk to
Melbourne
us about
too.
traffic congestion, and there was billions promised there for only a short stretch of road. It was quite frightening the amount of it costs to build these roads, but both sides are promising a lot of money out there to ease congestion. That is a massive issue.
Okay, on the Greens, because I know, Bill, you want to talk about that. Let's talk about these 3 Green seats that were won in Queensland last time, Ryan, Brisbane and Griffith, because you're seeing something that you want to say on Greens.
Obviously, the frustrating thing is we don't know all the pre-polls, but definitely in Brisbane and Griffith there's a definite sort of lean to Labor underway. Also in Victoria, where the Greens have run, and I don't want to mince my words, a despicable campaign in Wills, where they've been, sort of over the top in the aggro. Peter Khalil's hanging in there. And that was with a redistribution which gave him some pretty strong Green moves, so we don't know. Long way to go there. What is interesting is the Greens, though, have blotted their copybook for a long time now. In Menzies and Deakin, 2 very marginal Liberal seats, the Greens have inexplicably issued in some of the booths open cards. In other words, they've let the voters decide where to send their preference to. The Green Party helping the Libs. And that's a bit unusual.
Oh, come on. Well, you guys preference the Greens over us everywhere. So,
I'm not talking about
don't take the moral high ground.
Jane, I know this is a hard evening.
Come on.
I'm actually saying the Greens have given you open tickets.
Yeah, but you preferenced them.
Well, maybe
it doesn't matter what they've done,
okay
how bad they are.
It's
You
okay
can't
to say
squeal
thank you.
about how bad the Greens are and then preference them over us.
It's okay to say thank you, Adam Bandt, because that's what's happening in Deakin and Menzies, but we're still hanging in there.
And I think, actually, I'm looking at these early booths, Deakin, Bruce, Holt, Aston, in almost every booth, we're now seeing primary vote swings to Labor. So what Jane was saying earlier in the night, looks like on these early numbers will not be borne out in Victoria, which would have been a place that...
Except I think some of those seats had some of the highest pre-polls and highest
that's the caveat, no question.
Of course.
But you'd rather be getting the primary vote swings to you, not against you, wouldn't you? That's
start to get a good idea of that in the next half hour to 45 minutes as well. So if those votes are there, Jane Hume, they'll start to come through. Let's go to Townsville now. Bob Katter's standing by, representing the seat of Kennedy, obviously there since 1993. Bob, good evening to you. How are things tracking in your area?
Oh, I don't sort of count my chickens before they hatch, but, we're up on last time significantly, and we had a very handsome win last time, but there's a lot of polling to go yet.
Well, there is indeed, Bob, but I think you've got a fair few chickens you'll be able to count. I'd imagine it'd be hard to anyone to knock you off that roost that you've got going there. The issues in your area, look, I know you've been very vocal about the state of roads, particularly some of the highway funding up there. Cost of living, where did that factor in your area? Are there any issues there that you think might resonate outside your area and nationally that could turn the way Australia's been thinking or voting today?
There's no development taking place in Australia whatsoever. 60,000 metres spent on Olympic Games, it doesn't create one job, not one job. Every year we open 2 or 3 new mines. Every year we built a major dam, and that meant 100 or 200 people who are hard-working council workers or whatever, they became wealthy farmers. It was just so easy to do. Well, we haven't built a dam in 33 years in Australia. We haven't built a dam. We've closed factory and industry. Our motor cars were 62% Australian in 1992. Now they're all from overseas. Our petrol was 97% Australian. Now it's 97% imports. The factories are closed. Every single sugar mill, and that's one of the biggest industries in Australia, sugar, dragged us out of the Depression. Every single sugar mill was owned by the farmers, except for 3 that were owned by a company in Brisbane. Now, every single sugar mill is foreign owned. I mean, do you have no sense of right or wrong when you govern Australia or you govern Queensland? I mean, they don't govern anything. They're just there to make mealy-mouthed statements attacking their opponents. And the election was a good example of that.
Bob, what have people been saying to you as you've been going around? What's the take home, the number one take home?
In North Queensland, there's a lot of it's about freedoms. I mean, we can't go to the creek and have a swim because they're crocodile infested. We can't go spear diving or anything like that anymore. It's very hard to find anything that we're actually allowed to do. And, Brisbane and Sydney, they have their fun parks. Well, our fun parks with a local creek or river, well, they've been taken off us. We love going and shooting and camping and hunting and fishing. Our guns have been taken off us. Fishing, you'll get in terrible trouble fishing. One of our members of Parliament, because he had a beer in an area, he's in trouble. Freedom is a word that just doesn't apply in Australia, most certainly in Queensland.
Bob, it's good to be with to have you with us tonight. I'm going to jump in very briefly though, but congratulations to you tonight. I doubt there's going to be a big shift in the way you represent your people there. You can still keep fighting for their freedoms. Bob Katter, good to have you with us tonight. Thank you. I want to go straight over to Hugh Whitfield back at the power board with a major projection.
Yeah, hello Michael. Just seconds away from the polls closing in WA, we now believe that there is no path to victory for the coalition at all tonight. It will either be a minority or majority Labor government with Anthony Albanese returned as Prime Minister. We've had our first seat flip from the Liberal Party to the Labor Party, the seat of Bass in Victoria. It is the first time tonight that we are seeing Labor gain ground. Bridget Archer, we are saying, has lost the seat of Bass. You can see she was the incumbent in the blue there. It is now red. If we take a look at the seat of Bass in detail, we see that the local school teacher from Launceston, Jess Teasdale, is ahead on the primary vote with nearly a quarter of the vote counted. Bridget Archer has lost nearly 9% of the primary vote. A big swing to Jess Teasdale. If we go to the two-party preferred for Bass, the 2PP in Bass, that will show that those green preferences have flowed through to Jess Teasdale, and a swing to the Labor Party of more than 10%. So a big, important seat in Tasmania and a loss for the Liberal Party. Let's go to Bradfield on the North Shore of Sydney, the Upper North Shore. Now, this is where Paul Fletcher has retired. And at this stage, on the primary vote, about a quarter counted, Giselle Kapterian is ahead. She's the new Liberal candidate, but she is under assault from the teal-backed independent Nicolette Buller. Let's go to the 2PP data for Bradfield. These are the two-party preferred data. Now, Giselle Kapterian is losing on 2PP. Nicolette Buller is ahead on two-party preferred. At this stage, that is looking towards a pickup for the Teals, a Liberal loss. We need to see more data, but it is a bad night for the Libs in Bradfield. A good night for Labor, of course. Let's go to Queensland. Rankin, the Treasurer's seat. Jim Chalmers, easily projection. There is an ALP hold for the Treasurer. Jim Chalmers back on the primary vote. But gee, it's looking like a bad night for the Liberal Party. If we go back over to the tally board, we are saying that Bass is a loss for the Libs, a gain for the red, and what we might start to see over the coming hour is that sea of red on the left-hand side of the board, or my right, your left at home. It's going to flow this way potentially, because at this stage, the Libs are going backwards.
Mark Riley, this changes the needle heavily. Let's go to you.
Yeah, Michael, so as Hugh says, this vote, which is mostly votes that were cast today that are being counted, is flowing in Labor's favour. There are swings in Labor heartland to sitting members, but there are also strong swings against Liberal sitting members and to third-way candidates. Now, we're about to get a dump of votes from pre-polls, which may be different in character, may temper some of those swings. The smaller swings may disappear. The large ones probably not, and we're talking about swings early on 6, 7, 8, 9%. Now, if there was a certain on our needle, we'd probably move it there. But as the vote is now, the character of the vote, where it's coming from, and the uniformity of the swing at this point, we'd be moving the needle as far to likely as it will go that Anthony Albanese will be the Prime Minister again tonight. I think that is now an absolute certainty. As Hugh says, no chance of Peter Dutton being Prime Minister.
Bill Shorten and Tanya Plibersek, these are the 7 News projections. They seem strong. Are either of you prepared to call it at this stage as well?
Oh no, that's always a job for the leader, but I'd rather be in our position than the position of the Libs tonight. I think we were talking a bit earlier about the Greens' preferences. One of the really interesting things about the preferences in Deakin and Menzies is throughout the week, the Greens have been handing out a how to vote that has their votes preferencing Labor. Today, they switched to an open preferencing arrangement. It is very possible that in Deakin and Menzies, the Liberal candidates will be retained because of Green preferences changing today.
Hang on.
The Greens electing Michael Sukkar.
How many of your guys
Keith
get up because of Greens preferences?
I'm just making a comment that the Greens have spent this whole election saying they don't want a Dutton government, and wouldn't it be ironic if their preferences actually saw these two Liberals re-elected and that actually changed the outcome, made it a minority government instead of majority government? Could be quite consequential.
Clive Palmer, you're edging to get a comment in there.
What I'd like you to have a look at is the seat of Ryan in Brisbane, if you can, right? Because this was a long-held Liberal seat for many years until the Greens took it last time. And we know that the Liberal Party has targeted this seat, as has the Labor Party, but it would seem that a Labor victory, I believe, will follow in the seat of Ryan. If you have a look at the preferentials of the minor parties and who's standing there, right? Labor's got a good chance of knocking off the Greens there as well. And that's a shock, but overall it indicates what I said earlier is true. You've got nearly, if you add the Green vote with the Labor vote, you've got nearly 60% of the people of Ryan voting for the left side of politics.
Are you saying that Ryan there, Clive, I think the material aspect of this is where the Liberal preferences go, that they go to the ALP ahead of Green, and therefore the Liberal actually gets, who was standing to win the seat, then gets Labor above the Greens.
That's what I'm saying. But I'm also saying if you go down to the minor parties as well, you'll find that there's...
Well, one national preference, the Libs, which will go back to Labor.
Yeah, that's true.
It depends who comes third, doesn't it?
It depends who comes third, but I'm just trying to say, if we look at what's happening in the election overall, and we can say, well, here's the Greens, here's the Labor Party, they're going to come together, and they're at 60% of the vote, in what was a very, very strong traditional Liberal seat. It indicates what I said earlier, this is the worst result ever for the Liberal Party.
The Liberal Party's got it's got almost a geographic problem. If you live within 20 kilometres of the CBD, you're probably less... That is a predictor you're not going to vote coalition. And they've got a problem with people born after 1981. They've attacked the public service, so they want to cut them. If you work from home in the outer burbs, they've had that sort of confusing policy. I think that's being polite.
Misleading policy.
Well, your policy was misleading because you were for one thing then another.
It was about Canberra public servants, and you guys said it's about all women.
No, sorry, I was being politer about your policy doo-doo than you were, but sure, it was misleading. But what is interesting is I think I said at the early on, Bennelong's a bit of a pointer. There's lots of micro contests and there's a lot we won't know. But Jerome Laxell, I reckon, is going to hang on in Bennelong. I think Dr Gordon Reid going to hang on in Robertson. Their seats a party needs to form a government. Exactly. So, you know, I can. It's up to Albo to declare, but you can feel a majority coming on, can't you?
Yeah, I think that's true. But what the Liberal Party needs to do is get back to its roots.
It was bigger spending than Labor.
That's right.
What would you though, Clive? That's interesting.
Well, that's not true.
What would you describe as the Liberal Party roots, though?
Well, I've been a member of the Liberal Party. I was for 40 years. I was a life member of the Liberal Party. I was the party spokesman for the National Party for a long time, and I ran a lot of elections. So what I'd say, our policies are gone, not the same policies that used to be there that Robert Menzies founded the party on, of free enterprise, of industry, of growth, of doing things for Australia. And if we have a look, we've lost 7 refineries, oil refineries around Australia at the moment, right? We've lost so many industries. We don't make our own cars here anymore as far as that industry goes. That was a disastrous decision. And I think we've got to get back to make Australia grow. And you used to have, you know, the Free Enterprise Party was the Liberal Party. That was the voters, that was their electorate. That's who they went for. That people that didn't believe in a socialist doctrine. That's all changed now. The Liberal Party's wishy-washy. It's half left and it's half right. And if you're going to vote left, you're better to vote for the Labor Party, the real thing. And that's what people have done. They've voted for the real thing. The great tragedy, of course, is that Bill Shorten didn't become Prime Minister.
Yeah.
He could have been there for
I accept your apology, Clive. Now you've said that, we can move on.
Okay, hold that.
We need adherence. Okay, accept your apology.
Hold that thought, because we're a bit after 8 o'clock
moment of
now.
TV history then.
There it is. There's the headline. It's just to go on after 8 on the East. The polls have closed. The polls have closed in Western Australia as well. You're watching our 7 News special election coverage. It appears, as we've been saying, there is no path for a coalition victory. Let's go back to Hugh Whitfield at the 7 News Power Board with more on that.
Yeah, hello, Michael and Nat. Let's be very clear. Anthony Albanese will be claiming victory tonight. We don't know whether he will have a minority government or a majority government at this stage. There is a path, a very wide path, to Anthony Albanese increasing his majority in the lower house. But Peter Dutton, his hopes of being Prime Minister have been dashed tonight. There is very little doubt at this stage. Let's take a look at some of the seats where that are still uncalled at this stage. The seat of Banks in southwest Sydney. Now, this is a seat where the Liberals are looking to hang on. David Coleman is the Liberal MP in the seat of Banks. He is ahead on the primary vote. But let's take a look at the two-party preferred vote with that very sizable Green vote flowing through in preferences to the Labor Party. And there is a swing to the Labor Party of 4.4%. David Coleman in big trouble. It's one we need to watch tonight. Let's go to Brisbane, the seat of Ryan. It is a seat before this election that the Greens held on to. At this stage, they are on track. However, look at the way that the vote is splintered. It is basically a third for the Greens, a third for the LNP and a third for the ALP. You would think that the Labor preferences will flow through to the Greens and Elizabeth Watson-Brown will be returned with more than a quarter of the vote counted. Let's take a look at the 2PP data for Ryan and we will see where those preferences are going. Elizabeth Watson-Brown looking fairly good at the moment. The seat of Deakin down in Melbourne. Now, Michael Sukkar is in big trouble because look at this sizable Green vote. Nearly 14% Greens, those preferences will flow through. So even though he's ahead on the primary vote, when we look at the 2PP vote for Deakin, the count there, Matt Gregg from the ALP, look at that swing, more than 6%. Now, this was a super marginal seat going into this election. Michael Sukkar is in big trouble tonight. That is a potential loss for the Liberal Party. Let's go to Brisbane, the seat of Brisbane, back up in Queensland. This is a seat that the Greens held going into tonight. Now, on the primary vote, with about 20% counted, Trevor Evans, who is the former MP for Brisbane, he lost it to the Greens. He is ahead on the primary vote. These preferences are going to go everywhere. Let's take a look at the 2PP vote because I think we'll see some different leaders there. Do we have the 2PP vote for Brisbane? We don't at this stage, and that is because the Electoral Commission is trying to work out what on earth to do with these votes. It is so splintered, it's going to be very hard to vote. Back down to Melbourne, Goldstein, that is Zoe Daniel. Now, on the primary vote, Tim Wilson, the former member for Goldstein, is ahead. Zoe Daniel trailing. She's taken a hit on the primary vote. She's down 0.5%. But there are two big chunks of vote that we think will flow through to Zoe Daniel. 14% from the Labor Party, more than 8% from the Greens. Let's take a look at the 2PP data for Goldstein. And Zoe Daniel jumps ahead. Those preferences flowing through to her. At this stage, Zoe Daniel looks like she will retain the seat of Goldstein. Tim Wilson, a second-time loser. But we need to see where those preferences flow. It is a very tight seat at this stage, guys.
OK, Hugh Whitfield, thank you very much from the Power Board. Let's go to the Deputy Prime Minister, Richard Marles, in Geelong. Are you celebrating yet? Mr Albanese will retain the Prime Ministership.
Well, look, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. I mean, there's certainly a lot of signs that are encouraging, but there's, a ways to go here. And so I think the answer to this is I'm a naturally nervous person at this moment in the process, and I'm maintaining that nervousness. We're trying to keep a lid on it, but certainly the signs at this point in time are encouraging.
Well, do you see anything that might dispute where this is heading right now? It's almost certain you're going to remain as the Deputy Prime Minister. You're nervous for what reason, I wonder?
Well, I just think, we're still we are seeing swings. I mean, a lot of what we're seeing right now is obviously the poos that have been voted in today. Sometimes there can be differences between that and those on pre-poll, and obviously there's a significant number of people who voted prior to today. In fact, most people on our estimate voted prior to today. So we really need to get a feel for those votes, for the pre-polls, for postals. I mean, it is encouraging. It's probably more, as I say, a reflection of my personality than it is in terms of what we're seeing. But we'll be celebrating when we know.
This is about the happiest I've seen you. We've talked a lot. So I think
we'll read the face more than the words.
You're not doing a good job of keeping a lid on it, Richard Marles. Are you confident of at least a minority government? Do you think it will be a majority for Labor?
Look, well, it's certainly on the cards. I mean, that remains a possibility, and it is what we were trying to achieve during the course of the campaign. I mean, when you look at the seats that we were targeting, where in a sense we saw the front line and the front line that we were trying to establish, it was about trying to win majority government. But we know that's hard. I mean, like, we are on 78 seats. There's been no first-term government in the history of the Federation, at least as I understand it, who has increased the proportion of its share of the House of Representatives. So we are kind of up against history in a sense, and it's been a difficult period in which to govern, with a global inflationary environment around the world, with cost of living challenges in Australia that we've had to deal with. So all of those things are a part of it, but we have a sense of the results so far do look encouraging. Fingers crossed.
All right, Richard Marles, thank you. I think you can afford to smile for a bit there. Tanya Plibersek, did you want to have a final word to your colleague before we let him go?
I know it's great to see Richard and all his supporters there. I know they're not celebrating too early, but it's a happy feeling in the room. It's great.
Can we have a look at Flynn?
Clive Palmer wants to have a look at Flynn. Richard Marles, thanks for joining us as well.
Thank you very much.
We'll give our team a second just to catch up on the screen there. And Flynn, Clive Palmer's asking for to have a squiz out. There it is right now. What's your view there, Clive?
Well, I think it's pretty significant that the Labor Party may take the seat of Flynn from the National Party. And this is also interesting because there are other seats to look at, National Party seats. I know there's no one on the panel from the National Party, but this also spells what's the relationship going to be like with a coalition and opposition when maybe there's less Nationals, there's certainly going to be a lot less Liberals, and how does that play out for policy development? It's an opportunity for the Conservative side of politics to revisit what they actually stand for and what they can do for Australia in the future.
Jane,
because we want two strong parties.
Well, I mean, obviously there's an awful lot of things that will influence the direction of policy of a Liberal national government, and, that comes to where the seats are won, which states they're from, but it's entirely up to the leader as to where the policy direction goes.
Listen, everyone gave me advice when I lost. I want to give some back to the Liberals in the event...
We haven't lost yet, mate.
In the event you lose, you've got to move back to the centre. You can't drift around on the right. You can't hang out in those fringes. Elections are won from the centre.
Can I say, one of the interesting things that Clive was saying earlier is you feel like the Liberal Party's left you, right? That's what people say to me all the time in these Teal seats, and it's what the Teal members of Parliament say. They come from Liberal Party families. They've been involved in the Liberal Party in many times, in many circumstances in the past. They say it feels like the Liberal Party's left me. Doesn't feel like I've left the Liberal Party. It feels like the Liberal Party's left me because they have lost the
you guys are all such
centre
experts
party.
on the Liberal Party. I love it.
There's two things. There's the actual policies, but there's the process.
Yeah.
The participation of the members in the decision making. It's become an elitist party where just a few people from the leader's office make the policy. When they get down to the party room, there's no general discussion. There's no voting on policy fairly. There was a time when, say, John...
James just said the policy's up to the leader. We actually have democratic processes.
We should have. We should have.
Yeah.
We should have. But if you go back at the time of John Gorton or Malcolm Fraser, people that I worked with, and even Joh Bjelke-Petersen, when you come to a Conservative caucus, people would raise ideas. It wouldn't be the leader that chose it. Different ideas would go to Cabinet. They'd be discussed and someone would work that out. That doesn't happen anymore in the Liberal Party. So, members of Parliament are sounding boards for their community, whether they're right or left. They'll have ideas and you're supposed to be serving the community. So there needs to be a process in both political parties where that community reflection can be expressed. That stopped happening in the Liberal Party about 15 years ago, and that's why people think the Liberal Party's left them. That's why many people are voting for Teals.
All right, hold that thought. If we didn't think it could move any further, apparently it can. Mark Riley, you're at our election needle right now. Does it go any further in Albo's direction?
The way we're going at the moment, Michael, we're bending the needle. This swing is now becoming generalised. I was looking at seats in South Australia. Sturt is moving to the Labor Party with a strong swing. Boothby is swinging even stronger to the Labor Party. So across the east coast, from Queensland down New South Wales, even Victoria and Tasmania, now South Australia, there's a generalised swing on. That being the case, we'll move our needle right down the bottom to light up this fella's name, Albanese. People of Australia, that's your Prime Minister for the next 3 years. And at the moment, it's looking like a majority government to me.
All right, Mark Riley.
Okay, Mark Riley has spoken, and he has been with these guys for, years, decades. Sorry to say that. He knows what he's talking about.
The campaign's felt like that, gangster.
He looks younger every election.
Let's go to Alice Springs. Senator Jacinta Price is with us. You make Australia great again comment. Boy, did that make some headlines. How are you feeling about that? Because that really got picked up and thrown around. I know you apologised, but are you regretting it now?
Well, no, I don't regret, loving my country. And sure, absolutely anything you say or do that's available for Labor Party to weaponise against you, will absolutely do that. But ultimately, I came to this position on key issues around domestic and family violence concerning some of our most marginalised in remote communities, and I'll continue to fight for those particular issues. Well, this is what you get, I guess, when you have a very deceitful Prime Minister that has taken the country for a ride, basically, and been able to be very successful in terms of a Medicare scare campaign and various other ways to mislead the Australian people, which is, that's the worst part, I think, about it.
Jacinta, Michael Ushey here. I know there was a lot of commentary that in fact the Coalition just didn't use you enough. They didn't wheel you enough broadly across Australia. We're saying here, judged on these early predictions and swings, that Anthony Albanese is going to win, may even have a majority. The question now is for the party, for the Coalition, what went wrong? There'll be an analysis. What did go wrong in your view, and what needs to change on your side?
Yeah, look, there absolutely, like all campaigns, there are things that we could have done better, and we will go back and regroup and look at what it was that has produced the result that has occurred. I got around the country as much as I could and pressed the flesh and met people on the ground all over the place. But we'll discuss what we think certainly went wrong in terms of this campaign. And I mean, let's face it, it was a big ask to be able to unseat a sitting Prime Minister after his first term. And it's only been the last time it was done, and back in 1931. It was a big ask to try and do it right now in 2025, but we'll absolutely learn from what's occurred in this particular election and go forward and make sure that we can come back stronger in 3 years' time.
Yeah, okay. Look, thank you very much for joining us. We really do appreciate it. Thank you, and we'll let you get on with your night. Thanks, Jacinta. More numbers coming through. Hugh Whitfield is at the big board. He's at the power board. What have you got for us, Hugh?
Hello, Nat, Michael. At this stage, Labor is going to grow its majority. Anthony Albanese will be returned as Prime Minister. He may even have a bigger size of government, more MPs than he had before. We are saying that at this stage, Labor has taken at least 3 seats off the Coalition. Bass in Tasmania, Bonner in Queensland and Braddon in Tasmania as well. A shocking night for the Coalition in Tassie, and it's not looking good in Queensland either. Let's start down in Tasmania. 7 News projects that Anne Urquhart will move from the upper house to the lower house and take the seat of Braddon off the Liberals. Mal Hingston, the new Liberal candidate there, has gone backwards for the Coalition. A big 17% swing on the primary vote. Nearly half the vote counted there. We are projecting it for the Labor Party. Next up, Bonner up in Queensland. Now, this is a seat that we are taking off the Coalition, off the LNP. It looks like Ross Vasta, we are projecting, has lost the seat of Bonner with a third of the vote counted. Cara Cook, we are saying, will be the new member for Bonner in the south of Brisbane, on the south side of the river there. Let's take a look at the 2PP vote there, because that big Green vote makes Cara Cook feel even more comfortable. A 14% swing to the Labor Party in Bonner. Big problems for the Coalition in Brisbane tonight. Let's go down to the central coast of New South Wales now. Robertson is our bellwether seat. It has been since 1983. Wow. If you win government, then you need to win Robertson. And Lucy Wicks, trying to get her old seat back. She was the MP for Robertson. Dr. Gordon Reid, he's got the stethoscope around his neck there. He won't be seeing patients because he's got to go back to Canberra to sit in Parliament. He has increased his vote there with about 40% of the vote counted. Robertson, the bellwether, tells us that Labor has been returned. Anthony Albanese is back in the lodge. Let's have a look at Boothby in South Australia. We haven't been to South Australia yet at all. Nicole Flint, who retired, and then the Coalition lost the seat of Boothby to Louise Miller-Frost with 20% of the vote counted. We are saying Louise Miller-Frost comfortably defeating Nicole Flint. And that big Green vote, 20% to the Greens, that's just going to flow most of it straight through to Labor. So if we look at the do we have 2PP for Boothby? We do, and Louise Miller-Frost, a swing to Labor there of 11%. The Labor brand in South Australia really strong with the state government there. In the seat of Sturt, now this is the other key seat in South Australia. James Stephens is going backwards. He held that seat by a wafer thin margin, and at this stage on the primary vote, Labor looks to be on track to pick up the seat of Sturt. Again, look at that sizable Green vote, 18%. That will flow through most of it naturally to the ALP. And if we look at the 2PP there, Claire Cudahan is on track to claim that a 5.6% swing at this stage. 5% counted, I know, but it's not looking like a good night for James Stephens. One of the key seats tonight, Dickson, Peter Dutton's seat. Now, the primary vote, Ailey France ahead. She's got a 2% primary vote swing towards her. Peter Dutton has gone backwards on the primary vote. We've got the big vote for the Greens that we would say would flow through to Labor. Big vote for this Teal Independent that we would say would flow through to Labor. Peter Dutton is in really, really big trouble. Let's take a look at the booth-by-booth data for Dickson to see where Ailey France is ahead and where Peter Dutton is losing. And in places like Petrie in the suburbs of Brisbane, Ailey France is claiming those booths right through that suburban part of Brisbane, down as we get closer into the city centre of Brisbane. And Peter Dutton's picking up these smaller booths in the hinterland, but you've got to question whether it's going to be enough. We've got 25% of the vote counted there. Let's have a look at the 2PP data for Dickson, and those preferences from the Independent and from the Greens are flowing through to Ailey France. We've got it on a knife edge at this stage, but Peter Dutton, I mean, he may appear on stage tonight having lost the election. He also may appear on stage having lost his own seat. That's the way it's heading.
Wow, we have to go to Jane. Your leader could lose his seat. It's on a knife edge.
It is still early days though, and as I said, we still haven't counted pre-poll, we still haven't counted postals. I was looking at the data that you put up before on Deakin. I just think that that's nonsense. Deakin has, I think, the second highest number of postal votes at around 27,000 that you haven't counted yet. So this is an enormous amount of votes that haven't been considered.
Bill Shorten, you've got something there. Dickson, in Marumba Downs, pre-poll, scrutineers say that with more than 7,000 votes, our primary vote is up 4% in Dickson. The Coalition is down 8%.
That's where the Prime Minister started his campaign in Roma Downs. You run into
you
pit stop there.
You want to cue some pretty heavy background music for that bit.
Can I suggest if you look at the seat of Petrie, which is right next door, and you have a look what's happened in Petrie, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's been a 10% swing to Labor.
Yeah.
And that clearly that seat's fallen to the ALP, although it's not recognised at the moment, right? That tells you what's going to happen to Dixon, right? Because
it's Peter Dutton's brother-in-law.
That's right. They're right next to each other.
Tough
right?
times for that
so
family.
Tough. I think that just guarantees that Mr Dutton's returning to the beat.
That's extraordinary, that vote there in Queensland, when you think about it too, because they've just had a state election there where the LNP picked up seats and had a very strong result. And everyone expected that might transfer federally, but that's a much stronger vote.
And actually there were lots of those votes that weren't decided until the next day because of those pre-polls and postals.
But also you would have to say the Queensland state election was fought with the LNP wanting to claim the middle ground. They were rejecting the days of Campbell-Newman. They were saying we didn't like those big cuts and so on.
Jane, I'll give you one word because we don't want to get to their headquarters as well, but you go.
Crime was the really big issue.
Yeah.
And if you look at Solomon is the one that we haven't had a look at yet.
Listen,
there is a swing away from Labor. It's Solomon because of that big issue of crime.
There's no question that there's a couple of seats where the Labor candidates will be doing it tough at the moment. In Wills, Peter Khalil, Lisa Chester's in Bendigo, I think Northern Territory. But I've just been trying to search the history. I'm not sure, and maybe someone will beam into Channel 7, if in Australian history an opposition leader's ever lost their seat.
Stanley Melbourne Bruce,
but he was Prime Minister,
lost his seat in 29. John Howard, of course, lost his.
Let's catch up
opposition leader.
It's a good point. We'll do some research and catch up on the history because we do want to go to the headquarters. You know, and this is interesting, isn't it, for all of our viewers at home? In all of our planning, we were thinking we'd be sitting here for hours trying to work out what was going on tonight. There has been an early swing. The 7 News projection is that Anthony Albanese is coming back in as Prime Minister. Labor even getting an increased majority. Let's go straight to the party headquarters now. We'd normally go to them a little later in the night to see what the vibe was or what was moving. Katrina Blowers is at Liberal headquarters in Brisbane. Ashley Maloney at the Labor headquarters in Sydney. Ash, we'll go to you first. The mood there?
Well, we weren't expecting cheers this early in the night, Michael, but as you can probably see and hear behind me, there is so much excitement in the room here tonight off the back of our projection that Anthony Albanese will remain Prime Minister. He's at home, Kirribilli Lodge, watching these results coming in right now, but this is a room packed with the party faithful, his friends, his family. The beer's been flowing all night. In fact, Albo's even got his own branded beer that's been out here tonight, but they've been having a great time. As you can imagine, a very elated crowd here at Labor HQ tonight. So we're expecting Anthony Albanese to arrive here later this evening. This is the crowd that will be waiting for him. We understand that Penny Wong will be introducing him on stage, the same stage where he accepted the Prime Ministership back in 2022. He will once again be delivering a victory speech here tonight, guys.
Yeah, were they surprised? They didn't seem to expect it this early. That we're
It's an early
predicting
celebration.
not only a win but a majority, Ash.
Oh, absolutely. They were saying that they were quietly confident just an hour ago, but things have changed quickly in the last hour. I think the sense amongst the party faithful is that they're really impressed with the way that Anthony Albanese performed on the campaign trail. They said that he was warmly received when he was out and about. So they're not surprised. They were expecting a win tonight. They just didn't know if it would be a minority or a majority government. But tonight, now they know they can let their hair down. They know that this will be a victory party here tonight in Sydney's Inner West.
Okay, let's go to Katrina Blowers. You're with the Libs. Doesn't have the same vibe.
Well, from what I could hear from where Ash was, I've got to tell you the difference couldn't be
any more stark, guys. Up until about 5 minutes ago, you could have virtually heard a pin drop in this room. As to give you a sense of contrast, I was in this same room for the LNP party when the state election happened, and by this time of night it was a sea of blue behind me. There was also a giant bar set up in the corner. There's virtually not a drop of champagne to be seen here. You can see that there's still a lot of room left in this room. We're told that about 200 people are expected here tonight, and people like John Howard and Tony Abbott are expected to arrive, along with the Queensland Premier David Crisafulli. We haven't seen them yet. We're also told that Peter Dutton could already be here in one of the suites upstairs, watching as the results come in with his wife and children. But yes, I would describe this as a sense of sombre anticipation, certainly not a party.
Okay, thank you very much, Katrina. As we talk about a predicted majority for Labor, Jane, do you still believe that there is,
Can you see hope?
I'm struggling for the right words to say.
Yeah.
Do you still think that those pre-polls will flood your way, and some of these seats that are looking like Labor won't be?
Yeah, I think that they will. I think that pre-polls and postals, which tend to move in Liberals' direction, will shift the dial on some of those seats. We've hardly discussed any of the seats really in Victoria. We've hardly discussed the Teal seats down there, which I think will also be very interesting. We did mention Goldstein, but there was also some pretty interesting Teal challenges in seats like Monash and Wannon, and we haven't seen them play out just yet.
Do you want to bring up? Well, should we bring up one or two of those that you're trying to have a look? Is there one key seat that you might find some hope
I'm very interested in. I was in Kooyong this morning, and there was a very good feeling on the booths there.
All right, we'll bring that up as we're having a chat as well. It looks like there it is now.
It's Monique Ryan's votes holding in Kooyong on primaries, 39%. Amelia Hamer is down 5% on Josh Frydenberg at the last election at this stage, so it's going backwards for you. There's also bad news in some other seats there, Jane, in Victoria. Casey at the moment, Aaron Violi's behind the Labor's vote. Even though his primary's up, the independent there, Teal, is polling very strongly, and preferences running through to Labor, so that's tight. There are a lot of tight contests there, and there's not a lot of good news, I'm afraid. For
again,
Jodie Bellier has increased her margin in Dunkley.
Dunkley had more postals than any other country.
So you're hanging on to the postals.
I think postals and pre-polls are going to make a difference.
I'm happy to make a little bet, not about Casey, I think that's too close to call, but on Dunkley, I'm happy to make your sporting bet, donate to your favourite charity. $10. I think Jodie Bellier will be returned in Dunkley.
That was always going to be a tough one, I think, for us.
Good, okay.
And I was down there just yesterday.
So I'd say your favourite charity won't get the donation.
I was going to get down there yesterday, but I do think that Nathan Conroy has campaigned exceptionally well.
Maybe if you'd been there, who knows?
I was there yesterday.
Well, there you go. Okay, so we're still going to win.
Clive Palmer or Mark Riley here. Is the headline here tonight, yes, Anthony Albanese winning and probably with an increased majority, but is the headline here tonight the Greens? Mark Riley?
It is in Queensland, Michael. It's really interesting. Just tracking those three seats there, Griffith, Brisbane and Ryan, they're doing poorly in all three. And the preference arrangements there are not good for the Greens. Now, there are different scenarios in each of those seats. So in Brisbane, the expectation was that Trevor Evans, as a former member, would poll around 40%. He's polling 33%. So I know Labor's strategy was to get into the high 20s, low 30s and come second and then win on Green preferences. At the moment, Madonna Jarrett is, I would imagine, way ahead in the 2PP. She's around 33, Trevor's around 33, and Stephen Bates, who is the sitting member, is on 26. His preference is going through there. So it looks like Labor, I'd much rather be in their position than Trevor's at the moment, and the Greens are going to run third there, holding the seat. A very similar story in Griffith, although at the moment Max Chandler's vote's down 3%. The Labor vote, Renee Coffey's up 6.5% on the primaries. Now, you're looking at about 27% of the vote counted there, and the Liberal vote down 5%. And so with that being the case, if Renee Coffey runs 35 with Max Chandler, it should be better to go above him, but she's going to get the Liberal preferences and knock him off at this stage. And Ryan, which is the other seat that the Greens picked up in Brisbane, a very similar scenario. So you've got a three-corner contest there and a real ding-dong battle. The ALP is picking up most on the primaries, about 6%. The LNP down 5%, the Green down just a little bit. Elizabeth Watson-Brown, who's a sitting member. Again, preferences.
The headline's not going to be about the Greens, it's going to be about the opposition. First opposition losing his seat.
That's it.
And it's going to be about what happens in Western Australia. Will Hastie lose his seat as well? Who's going to lead the Liberal Party out of the
those numbers are starting to come in.
Coming back to Victoria, let's see what happens in Wannon. I wouldn't write Dan Tehan off yet. I think that's Alex Dyson's running. He's the Indy.
Yeah.
But I think Dan Tehan's quite formidable, so I wouldn't write him off. No. So there's no need for the Liberal supporters to just jump off the cliff yet.
All right, hold your thoughts on that. I want to analyse it, but let's be really clear. Clive, hold on one tick. At this point now, 2.5 hours into the East Coast vote and 37 minutes after the WA has closed, we are now saying 7 News project Labor has won the election. Anthony Albanese has won. Mark Riley is also saying on some of the numbers that he is seeing that Labor not only wins but probably with an increased majority at this stage. There seems to be no pathway. Jane Hume, I know you're saying that you're relying on the pre-polling to come in and help some of your seats, but at this stage we're declaring and saying very firmly that Labor has won the 2025 election. Mark Riley, your view?
Yeah, it's a surprising swing at the moment, and it's generalised, which is something we didn't expect. So normally when it's a generalised swing in an election such as this, it's a rejection of the opposition leader and the opposition campaign. And that's a real problem for Peter Dutton. Bill pointed out, I've done some research, no opposition leader has ever led to a defeat and lost their own seat. 2 Prime Ministers have done it, we talked about that, Stanley Melbourne Bruce 29, John Howard in 2007. No opposition leader federally has ever done that, so that would be quite the epitaph. Few have done it at state level.
But Jane Hume, I'll give you the chance at this stage, given the declaration tonight. I know you're going to try and find some credit, some hope in the pre-polling numbers. It'll come in and shore up some of the coalition vote. But what went wrong here? Why did Peter Dutton fail in this campaign?
Well, I will say that pre-poll and postals are around 50% of the vote that we still haven't counted yet, and so I do think that you are
pre-polls
already
are coming through now,
you are
Jane.
Already reading the entrails before the chicken is gutted. However,
this chicken ain't squawking.
Is gutted.
This was an extraordinary.
There's chickens on the block.
This was an extraordinary election that and personally, it was one of those ones where it was so disappointing to take part in an election where there were just so many lies told, and there was surface level lies that everybody knew about. The 600 billion on nuclear and all that. That's nonsense.
Well,
it was nonsense.
However, your leader seemed
but there was the subterranean lies as well. And they were. I absolutely will. The public speak, no problems. But there's no way either of you could look me in the eye and say that you thought that nuclear energy cost $600 billion. It did not, and it doesn't.
Are you going to take nuclear energy to the next election?
It's discredited.
That idea is as cooked as Fukushima. It's not happening. It's over.
Campaign on it. Why'd you go silent on it? It's 3 months ago.
We absolutely
in France,
did not.
the government's building a nuclear power. It's 14 years overdue, and it's 5 times the cost. That's the reality in France at the moment. So the reason the Liberal Party lost was what you said, Mark, but also their policies. Their policies were... You would see Albanese would announce a measure, and Peter Dutton wouldn't say I disagree with that or that's wrong. He'll say, I'll match it.
It's like the ghosts of the Kremlin took over the Liberal Party.
So why not vote for the real deal?
Hang on, I've listened. The nuclear policy was such a cooked policy. The only way you were going to get up is you said the government will build it. Like, it's the ghost of Brezhnev.
Well, hang on. Your policy, can we put it out there now, is to continually do the same thing, which has seen energy prices rise by more than 32%, and then recycle people's taxpayer-funded money and put subsidies on it.
Bring back coal-fired power stations.
Time out briefly. We're being told there is actually movement from Kirribilli House and the Prime Minister. Jodie Lee, your reporter, you are there. Are we starting to see Anthony Albanese on the move?
Cheers, guys. Thank you. Good evening, Michael. Yes, well, it looks like there will be some movement here in the next couple of minutes. We've just had a final warning from police here at Kirribilli House in Sydney telling us that any moment these bollards out the front of the building will come down, these gates will open, and Prime Minister Anthony Albanese will make his way to meet the Labor Party faithful at the headquarters at the Canterbury Hurlstone Park Leagues Club. Anthony Albanese has been holed up inside Kirribilli House for a number of hours. We saw him this afternoon take his dog Toto out onto the front lawns for a walk. He was looking very calm and relaxed, and just a few hours after that he was joined by his party faithful and key allies. Among them is Foreign Minister Penny Wong, who has been inside this evening, no doubt watching those votes roll in and growing more confident by the minute that both she and Anthony Albanese, along with their Labor colleagues, will be restored to government. There are a number of AFP vehicles that have come in. That white car you can see behind is the car that Penny Wong arrived in earlier this evening, but we're told that Anthony Albanese will be escorted under police guard to that Leagues Club very soon, where he will no doubt deliver that victory speech.
OK, thank you very much, Jodie. We'll leave you before you get run over by the car as the gate opens.
Yeah, it's going to happen pretty fast. Nat, I'm sorry to do that. I called time out. Jane, I just was going to give you the chance to say, yes, it was a Stacks line a minute ago, but from the beginning, I guess the question that a lot of your base is going to ask is, why didn't Peter Dutton, he seemed flat-footed from the beginning, as Clive was saying, matchy-matchy on the policies. If nuclear was to be embraced, why not come out strongly from the beginning and make it a clear policy? I guess a very honest question, what did Peter Dutton do wrong here? What did your campaign do wrong?
Well, on the nuclear policy, I think that more of the same simply isn't an option. And if that's what Labor are offering, I think Australians will find themselves very disappointed when their electricity bills go up yet again, and more subsidies need to be used in order to provide cost of living relief, which seems to be an ongoing cost of living crisis rather than something that should be temporary. So that's, I think, number one. But can I be very clear? We came out with that policy very early on in this term of government. It was a distinction from the very first year, I think, of opposition. It was a very courageous policy in that respect. Now, you know, these guys will say reckless, but I think courageous and differentiating
well,
is
Jane, it
really
might not come down to
fundamentally
policy.
important.
It might be personality if you look at Peter Dutton's seat, and it is bad news, Mark Riley, for Peter Dutton.
Yeah. Why not announce your numbers?
Clive, just hold on 1 second for me.
Yeah, look, I'd like to hear what Hugh says on this.
Take it away, Hugh.
It is bad.
You've got some breaking news, Hugh.
Nat, Riles, Michael, we are saying that Peter Dutton has lost the seat of Dickson. It's flipped red. He had it as blue. It's flipped red. The seat of Dickson has been lost to the Labor Party. Let's take a look at how the vote has fallen. Ailey France, another crack at the seat for her. She is ahead on the primary vote by about 4%. She has gone ahead. She has gained on her previous vote. She is really eating out on preferences coming from the Greens and the independent candidate there, a Climate 200 backed Teal independent, a local, and those preferences are flowing through to Ailey France. If we take a look at the primary vote at the booth level at this stage, let's take a look at where those votes are coming into from Ailey France at a booth level, and you can see it's those suburbs closer into Brisbane, a few smattering down there near Albany Creek for Peter Dutton, and it's the hinterland where he's picking up some vote. But when we go to the 2PP, those preferences from the Independent and the Greens are just flowing really hard through to the ALP on the two-party preferred vote, and that would be, at the current stage for Ailey France, that would be an 8 or 9% margin for her if it holds up before the end of the night, a swing of more than 10% to the Labor Party away from Peter Dutton. Do we have swing data at a booth level for that? We don't at this stage, but we're going to get it over the course of the night. No, we do, and look at that. Every vote, every booth in the whole seat has swung towards the Labor Party. Every single booth in Dickson has gone away from Peter Dutton towards the Labor Party. It is a bad night for the Libs, a bad night for the LNP in Queensland, a bad night for Peter Dutton.
Wow, OK. Look, there's a live shot of Toto the dog first, which is who seems very happy at the moment.
He's got the mail. He's got the mail.
There's a metaphor in there somewhere, which I don't think we need to talk about at this stage.
We don't need to spell it out.
Look, Jane Hume, this is not a good night for your party. It is not a good night for your leader. This is something that, put mildly, is a disaster for you and your party.
This is, look, if these predictions are true, and again, I just put it back to, we haven't seen pre-poll yet, we haven't seen the postals yet, they are almost 50% of the vote. But if this is true, well, then it would be very sad. Peter is a very popular colleague among his colleagues, and I mean all of them. I'm not just talking about, one faction, another faction, any of that nonsense. He's a very good man. When I didn't know Peter very well when I was first elected, we were in different houses. He'd been there for a long time. I was pretty new. I went to an airport once and I was running for the plane, and as I got to the plane, just as they were shutting the doors, the pilot walked off and said, we're going to change planes and change gates. That one's got a problem. But I ended up talking to this pilot, and he'd seen that I was wearing a Senate badge. And he said to me, "Oh, you're a member of Parliament. Do you know Peter Dutton?" I said, "Yes, I do, not well, but yeah, I do know Peter." And he said, "I think he's the most terrific bloke, and I'll tell you why. I met him at a sausage sizzle, and I was wearing my civvies, and he just got into talking to him, and I told him I was a Qantas pilot." He said, "A year later, I was walking through an airport, and I was wearing my uniform, and Peter Dutton walked on the other side. He's walking in a different direction, and he looked over me and he caught my eye and he goes, 'John, hi, how you doing? Peter Dutton.'" And that's an amazing thing, to be able to recognise somebody from your own electorate that you haven't seen for a year in a completely different context.
Okay.
And he said he had me at that moment. He was actually a very popular member of his own community. I think this is if this is true, and I do believe that we still need to throw those numbers again.
A decent man who his own people have rejected tonight, though.
But let's be respectful here.
Okay, well,
this is a man that was a great led his community.
That was a great eulogy. I just wanted to say that
we're not at a eulogy stage yet. Can I tell you?
Oh,
We're
okay.
absolutely not.
We're calling the seat.
Where are all those Qantas pilots when we need them?
Let me just say, Peter Dutton's greatest achievement was keeping the Liberal Party together. If you ask any Liberal member, they'll say that, keeping all the factions together. But that's not the question tonight. What can keep the country together, and what have the policies to go forward? You may be a great guy. You may recognise people and be able to shake their hand, but do you have the competence and ability to provide the leadership for the nation?
I am like anyone else. I know where Peter Dutton is going to be tonight, so to him and his family, it's really tough, and he's given it his all. I don't doubt that. But what we've seen tonight is history being made. And Anthony Albanese is the first Prime Minister since John Howard, likely to be re-elected and with a majority. Secondly, we've seen history tonight. Never in the history of the Commonwealth of Australia is an opposition leader going to lose their seat. If that's what happens, that's big. That is earthquake stuff. And thirdly, we haven't spoken much about it, the Liberal Party and the coalition. This country works well when both parties are somewhere near the middle. And I think Peter Dutton may have united the Liberal Party, but he's done it by shrinking the Liberal Party. And I think the other thing which we haven't spoken about tonight is that there's a lot of Australians uneasy about President Trump's policies, and there's been a flight to certainty. And love him or hate him, Albo and the team, they're there and they've had the policy. So this is one of the first elections I've ever seen where, if you like, the shadow of foreign affairs has really loomed large over the domestic debate, and the Libs sort of turned a bit MAGA-esque in some of their statements at exactly the wrong time.
Well, I think actually you pushed it in that direction. I want to say something about Ailey France, who is our candidate for Dixon. We hope the next member for Dixon. She is a knockout. This is her third time running. I think a lot of people know her background. She was in a terrible car accident. She lost a leg. She's been an athlete. With one leg, she's been door-knocking thousands of homes. She's had some personal tragedy. She keeps turning up. She keeps working hard. She's got a lot of charisma and a lot of grit. And I think this, if it turns out that Ailey France is the next member for Dixon, we will all be delighted because she'll make a stellar contribution to our parliament.
Can I say one thing, just as this count is still going, and two Lees just gone ahead of Daly in the Battle of the Lees in Fowler, which is interesting. We're up to around 22% of the vote there. There was some discussion about the nuclear policy. Peter Dutton would have, reasonably enough, claimed a mandate for that policy had he have won this election. He has lost embarrassingly, resoundingly. The nuclear policy in the Liberals, I'm not a betting man. If I were, I'd put my house on it, is gone the way of the dodo tonight.
Well, can I just put it out there and say that John Hewson lost an election on a GST and John Howard won an election on a GST.
So
that's not the... No, he
Jane,
didn't. I'm just
Jane,
saying.
a tip for someone who's been for an opposition loss: too early to start declaring your policies for the next one.
100% agree, but I'm just saying, you know...
Free advice: the nuclear policy is a stinker.
Is this when
Aussies aren't going to buy it?
When you're
I
possibly leader,
I think what we can
Jane?
say is the nuclear policy funded by the government is a stinker.
But
right?
the private sector, would you buy into nuclear?
I just,
How about you just
my
lift the
view is that
moratorium?
all acceptable energy should be left to the market to decide.
Yeah.
Let the market decide. Don't leave it to the government to decide.
You could be a big player in the energy market, you are.
Yeah.
Would you put your money into nuclear, Clive?
I don't think I'd put my money into nuclear in Australia.
There's the problem.
But I think
it's illegal now, so of course
I think it should be legal. If it's a viable energy, it should be legal. Let the market decide.
If you want to keep arguing about nuclear power, that's on the Liberal Party. There are 4 Labor seats, though, which are still a bit close to call. I mean, like, there's a count going on. There's lots of volunteers on all sides of politics still wondering. Bendigo, Bean, Solomon, Caldwell, we're just... Like, Labor's still got some... These are great MPs, great candidates, but I think there's no doubt the trend is clear.
It's a swing to Labor Party right across the board. I estimate there's about a 11% swing to the Labor Party across Australia.
It's not in Bendigo. That's an interesting seat.
No, Bendigo, the Nats...
Let's just, we'll take a brief break away from here. Each of you have a look at the various swings and bits that you're seeing, concentrate on some seats. We'll come back and address them. We do want to go back up to the Situation Room, check in with Tim McMillan and your guest up there, Tim.
Thank you, Michael. Fair to say the situation in here, the vibe at least in the Situation Room, is quite different to when we joined you last. That sort of festival party atmosphere is not uniform across the room, shall we say. There's some high fives on one side and some staring down into the drink in their hand for the other side. I've got Patrick Gorman and Michaelia Cash here with me. Firstly, Patrick, I was going to press you to call it, but it's there now. You're the Assistant Minister to the Prime Minister. I mean, have you been in contact with him? Is there any WhatsApp group that you're in where you're throwing around messages of congratulations yet?
What I'm seeing is we're still getting results through. Obviously, polls closed just about an hour ago in Western Australia, so I've got some early results. Very encouraging for Tracy Robertson-Pearce. Labor is leading the primaries count when it comes to Bullwinkle, a key seat which we're contesting, and we're seeing that shoring up of votes across a range of states. You know, Jess Teasdale down in Bass. Congratulations to Jess, that's an incredible result. And then we've got Mary Doyle in Aston hanging on. She won that by-election and she's going to be in the next parliament. That's very encouraging what we're seeing there. And then, I mean, like many people in, the WhatsApp groups and other things, keeping a close eye on the seat of Dixon where we've got some...
You haven't sent each other little party balloon emojis yet, though? That hasn't happened yet?
I will wait until the Prime Minister is standing up and telling us what he thinks has happened at this election. But I think what we've seen on television tonight, in the Channel 7 counter alone, you've got Labor currently locking in 3 seats to 1 for the Liberal Party in terms of what we, and National Party, what we know has happened. And already you're starting to see some Liberals and Nationals try and put all the blame on Peter Dutton. They sat around the cabinet table for 3 years. They were responsible for the policy development. They all backed the nuclear plan. They all backed the public service cuts. This is... What I'm seeing is a failure of a team to listen to the Australian people and a failure of that team to take any responsibility for what they've put forward. There's still a lot of votes to count. Like I said, really early days in Western Australia. Senator Cash and I both want to know what's happening in the West.
I know you're glued to those early numbers coming through from the West, but can we just talk about Peter Dutton just for a second? Overwhelmingly rejected across the nation and overwhelmingly rejected in his home base in Dixon as well. Every booth has gone against him.
Well, I don't give
Are
up
you shocked
until
by that?
I don't give up until the last vote is counted.
True, but
and
even
realistically,
the pre-polling votes coming through now are going against him
there is still a long way to go. But look, it is not looking good for the coalition tonight. I mean, that is very obvious. I think Bill Shorten made the observation that once a trend sets in, a trend sets in. And the trend we're seeing tonight is clearly not a good one for the coalition. In relation to Peter Dutton, though, I will make this point. The only reason that we have been competitive in the last 3 years, it doesn't look like we've been competitive tonight,
but you haven't when it's
is
bad.
because, though, of the leadership of Peter Dutton. He has held this seat since 2001. It has been a marginal seat every single time. I have to say, the online campaign by Labor and the Greens against Peter Dutton was probably the most disgusting I have ever seen. And I think that is actually then therefore resonated with people. They have believed what they have seen on social media.
So you reckon it's all the smear campaign?
No, not at all. What I'm saying
nothing to do with what the party's standing for, apparently.
What I'm saying is, we should have called out Labor's lies a lot earlier.
Well, why didn't you?
Absolutely. And that is something we'll need to look at. We didn't. You are absolutely
but that's
right.
Politics 101, surely.
We should have, and we didn't. We should have gone a lot harder on our message on cost of living, and in particular the simplicity of...
You did go pretty hard on that for much of the campaign, though, but obviously it didn't land.
Well, again, we're going to have a very good look at ourselves. I'm not about to say that we are not. But I have to say, let's just wait and see what the final result is. But ultimately, it's not the night the Coalition wanted. I think there are still a number of seats in play. We haven't seen from Western Australia yet. Let's see what happens in Western Australia. We did run a different campaign, obviously, a very Western Australian-focused campaign, different to the rest of the country, and we've still got the results to come in from there. But I'm realistic. It's not the light the Coalition wanted, obviously. The trend has set in. But in relation to Peter Dutton, I think personally he's done a fantastic job over the last 3 years. It clearly has not translated into a win, but he has held a marginal seat since 2001. He was outstanding as a minister in the former government. And as I said, I'm going to wait till the last vote is counted.
OK, well, look, it looks at this stage like he's not going to hang on to that seat. As the soul searching begins, which it inevitably will after tonight's result, the fact that you don't even have to discuss his leadership, that you have to find a new leader. In a sense, does that remove one obstacle in the way that might be in the way of you just setting about a rebranding of the party for the next term?
I don't think I've ever seen a member of a political party, whether it's Liberal or Labor, who are not winning an election, sit here on election night and discuss the future leadership. Peter Dutton at this point in time is the leader of our party. Okay. Mr Albanese has not even given his speech tonight. So with all due respect, I will wait until the final vote is counted.
All right. Well, Toto's already marked his territory on the front lawn of Kirribilli House, so that's as good a sign as any, I think. Back to you guys.
All right, Tim, thank you very much for that. Toto is out and about. The Prime Minister's about to move, which we'll bring you live pictures of as well. You can see the box down on the bottom of the screen there with the camera focused on Kirribilli. But to be fair, a lot of these numbers are rolling in, as Jane Hume has been saying. It may not affect the end result tonight, but there's still some fascinating movements in the individual seats. We haven't even had a look at what the Teals are or aren't doing at this stage. But Hugh, go to the big numbers board now and just drill into a few more hard results as the counting continues.
Yeah, Michael, I want to start here on the tally board. Now, a great night for Labor, but it's not a great night everywhere. Right now in Wills in Melbourne, Peter Khalil is in a really big fight with the Greens, Samantha Ratnam. It is way too early to call Wills. It's on a knife edge. We'll come to that later on. But look at these seats that were blue that have turned red. We can count Deakin, Bass, Bonner, Dixon, Peter Dutton's seat, Petrie and Braddon that have all fallen from the Coalition to Labor. Let's drill into some of them. Bass in northern Tasmania includes Launceston out to Flinders Island. Bridget Archer, high-profile, moderate Liberal. She's lost tonight to Jess Teasdale, the ALP candidate who's a Launceston local school teacher. Up in Queensland, the seat of Bonner. It was a key seat that really hit the headlines over the last week or so as one being very much in play. Ross Vasta, the LNP MP, we are projecting that he has lost tonight to the ALP's Cara Cook on the south side of Brisbane, including part of Mount Gravatt. In Braddon, back down in Tasmania, that's another Labor gain. Anne Urquhart moves from the upper house to the lower house. Mal Hingston, the new Liberal candidate, was in Liberal hands before this election. Nearly half the vote counted there. 7 News projects that Anne Urquhart will be the new member for Braddon. Let's go to Deakin now. Deakin in the outer suburbs of Melbourne, and Michael Sukkar, the high-profile Liberal housing spokesperson, I think he was, the ALP will pick up that seat. 7 News projects with about a quarter of the vote counted. Why are we saying that this early? Because look at that Green vote, nearly 13%. 2PP, that flows through. If we look at the two-party preferred data for Deakin, that Green vote flows through to Matt Gregg, and he will comfortably be elected, stealing that seat off the Libs. Dixon, you can tell we're going through these alphabetically. Dixon in the outer suburbs of Brisbane. Peter Dutton, we have projected that to Ailey France. And Griffith, now right in the guts of Brisbane, the seat of Griffith, that's Kevin Rudd's old seat, a high-profile Green, Max Chandler Mather. On current projections, we are saying he has lost. That's an ALP gain from the Greens, guys.
Okay, Hugh, thank you very much. We have got Claire O'Neill joining us on the panel with a big smile on her face. We will come to you in just a sec, but I think we have the Prime Minister on the move. Jodie Lee is right outside Kirribilli House. Hello.
Well, someone's on the move. I think it's the PM chasing the dog again, isn't it? That dog's getting a good walk tonight before Albo. Albo's not in a rush to get anywhere. So, but anyway, here's the movement at the front door there. The car's getting ready there. This is obviously the front door to Kirribilli House, the Prime Minister's official residence, where the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, we're saying is staying for another term of government, getting ready to get into the Prime Ministerial vehicle there on the left.
And then head to the Canterbury Hurlstone Park Leagues Club. Of course, this is what they do every election, don't they? On the move, and then they'll go to the Leagues Club, and then we wait.
Then they go into a room. Well, Tanya Plibersek is on her way there right now, I'm pretty sure. Claire O'Neill, even though we're not seeing you on camera, we'll bring you in for a bit of commentary, so just leave the pictures up there as well. But we've let Tanya head to the party. You're coming in with a big smile on your face. Your reaction tonight, please.
Well, it's obviously looking like a good night for Labor, but I think, as Bill and others have said, we've got some seats in doubt that are really important to us with fantastic local members, so we just need to just see a little bit more of the results to come through. But I do think, the Liberals are going to have to ask themselves some incredibly tough questions after this. If you look at where we're seeing those swings against Liberals, they're happening right across the country and in every demographic that the Liberals have relied on to get into government. And you have to stand back at this result and just think, where do the Liberals go from here? The Dutton strategy has not worked for them. In my home state of Melbourne, this is where the big talk was that we were going to see seats like Isaacs and Bruce and those, really, sort of stronghold Labor seats fall to the Liberals. Well, the opposite has actually happened in Melbourne. We're contemplating in Melbourne a situation where there is no Liberal representing a seat in metropolitan Melbourne. I mean, Deakin and Menzies, we'll see what happens tonight. But the fact that that's even a possibility, that tells us there is something going really wrong here for the Liberals.
So you had, according to the polls, an unpopular Prime Minister last year. Then at the beginning of this year, or as soon as Trump got in, it flipped. Was it Trump? Was it just the campaign? What did you guys sit around and see from your perspective?
Look, I think it's a whole range of things, Nat, but I have to say, I've been door knocking and with candidates all over the country. I think the Trump aspect has been in the background, but the biggest thing that has been going on in this election is the cost of living. This was a cost of living election. That is the vast majority of those door knock conversations that you would have with people. And the truth is that Labor came to this election with a better answer. Peter Dutton did a good job throughout the term exploiting grievances, but when it actually came to the moment for him to explain how he was going to address the concerns that he was raising, he had nothing to say. I mean, I'm just thinking back to, if your viewers can remember, January, where we thought, the Liberals will have been doing so much hard work over the summer, thinking about what they're going to come up with. And the thing they brought forward was their $10 billion buy your boss lunch. I mean, what a wild thing to do when people are struggling with the cost of living.
That that's not what that policy was.
Well, it's exactly what it was.
You want to keep lying,
it's exactly what
absolutely
exactly what it was. And
so,
this is where I actually started to think when we got into 2025, is that what the Liberals are going to be bringing forward as we come into the campaign? And, at the end of the day, we've got really serious issues in people's household budgets. The Liberals had no answer to that, and they need to go in and understand, how can a major political party have been so off base with the real concerns of the people they were trying to represent?
Can I just step in there and say congratulations, Claire, on winning your seat, which I think is probably the first and foremost thing that we should say. However, I do think that 25 cents off a litre of petrol made an enormous difference, and we haven't seen the movements in places like Hawke yet. Gorton is still in play. These are seats that you guys have had for forever and a day that were never even on the radar of a Liberal Party until this election. So let's just wait until we get there before we start sort of crowing.
Well, let's look at 25 cents off a litre of petrol for a minute. Let's just look at the marketing and how they presented that. They could have said each family has 5 fuelings a month, and there's $50 saved at each fueling, not 25 cents. That's $250, and that's $3,000 you're going to save.
We did. We said it's $1,500 a year for an average
all right.
car,
So
or
you,
2.5.
but Jane, the logic of what you say is, if you did all of that, why have you done so badly? The reality is, your campaign was really bad. It was a shocker.
I will concede that there are things that we are going to have to look at the way we campaigned in this election that we will never do again. We will never do again.
Is there one thing that you could identify?
Like what?
Well, I don't think that. I do think that Michaelia made a very good point, which is that there were so many lies that we didn't counter quick enough.
Oh my God! Oh my God! You are not the victims here. The Australian people.
Do you know what you said? Real wages rose under you. They didn't. They went
They
backwards.
rose faster than inflation.
No, they didn't. They didn't. That's what a real wage is about, Bill.
Oh my God, you're
It
a
went
victim.
backwards.
You are not a victim.
I'm not saying that we are.
Now, you were saying you're the victim of a bunch of lies and that the Australian people were mugs and were tricked. Can I tell you, that is a quick road to electoral hell if you run that argument.
Well, are you seriously
You're
telling
not a victim.
me that
The Liberal
nuclear
Party are not
energy, You're going to
victims.
continue on with nuclear energy?
my
So
God.
hang on a sec. In the middle.
Okay, you win the left. What
Wait a
was the
sec,
name
wait
of
a
that
sec.
famous Japanese lieutenant in the Philippines in the 1970s who kept the Lieutenant Anada? You win the Lieutenant Anada award.
But Jane, what you're saying is that they are better salespeople than you are. So do you have to work on your sales pitch?
It's just the marketing. It's the substance, guys. It's not just the marketing.
It's not just the surface lies, it's the subterranean lies too.
my
And let me
God.
give you an
Okay.
example. Let me give you an example. So I was turning up to a television studio, not this one, unfortunately, that I turn up to on a regular basis, and I talk to the security guard there on a regular basis, every week, twice a week. And I said to her last week, have you voted yet? And she said, no, I haven't voted yet. And I said, oh, well, you better get onto it. And she said, I'm really worried because I don't feel like I can vote for you this time because you're going to cut penalty rates. I said, no, we're not. She said, yeah, I got a text message from Labor saying you're cutting penalty rates. I said,
Really?
we're not.
But hang on,
we're not.
It was probably from Clive.
No, it was from you guys.
Clive wants to know how we could have even got a text out. He thought he'd bought them all. He'll be having words with his media.
How'd they get away with it?
Okay, let's talk industrial relations.
Are terrible. That's a lie. It was never a policy, and you made it up.
Two quick contradictions. I don't want to fuel you this victim psychology, but I've got to address one: working from home was an IR strategy, and it was a blunder. Two, poor old Canberra. You said that you're going to get rid of 41,000 public servants. Then you said you're going to get rid of them within the borders of the ACT. Like, that, it's dumb. You can't get rid of that number of people without amputating your systems. You guys had a hodgepodge of sort of, water cooler discussions. And I think Peter Dutton has been let down by some of his front bench who clearly did bugger all work.
Well, there was no
3 years of
campaign with the front
manana.
bench. You didn't have a team. You just had Peter Dutton as a leader. He didn't cut through, so you didn't have people like Jacinta or like Hastie or other people.
Whereas we had Claire.
Yeah, we had Claire. We had Claire. But I'm just saying that you needed to show a combined team with Jane, everybody ready to govern.
Yeah,
so there needed to be like a team approach. They chose not to do that, to put everyone away. So everyone assumed that there mustn't be any good.
Yeah.
There mustn't be any depth in the Liberal Party. And there may be. There may be a lot of depth there. But they didn't use that depth to present a united team that you're ready to
Mark
run.
Riley, you and I have spoken about this as well, that Jane Hume, I wonder whether the campaign strategy was flawed from the beginning in that run soft, run small on detail, run small on policy and hope that the electorate was hating Anthony Albanese and they'd take it out on him and let Peter Dutton be a small target.
Yeah.
Was that just an error from the beginning?
We could certainly feel anger out there because we saw that people's living standards had gone backwards, and they'd gone backwards by about 8% over the last 3 years.
Peter Dutton didn't capitalise on that. It's proven tonight.
There was fury in that.
But how can you announce your figures a day before the election? With the greatest respect.
That's what Labor did last time, and you can't. Hang on. You cannot announce your costings while there are still announcements to be made. So there were still policies being announced by both Labor and Liberal. and that's why costings are done at the last
Can I
minute.
also tell you, when you lose, everything you did will be wrong. Don't fight it. Just
That's right.
But the thing is, don't say to the voters
This is
that they
fun.
were
We should do pylons more often.
No, I was just about to say, do we need to get Michaelia to come down and give you a hand? So, no. Let's. It's a fair.
It's a really tough night to be the Liberal on the panel.
Jane makes a fair point.
We respect that.
And Bill, you know how. Bill, let me ask you. You know how tough it is to lose an election, and how difficult it is on family and the people around you, the party that relied on you. It's a very, very tough situation to be in.
Oh, yeah. And one thing that Peter shouldn't do, and his family shouldn't do, is, sure, I do think the policies were bad, and I do think the campaign was bad. But one thing Peter Dutton shouldn't do is, when he goes home and sees his family, he's got to understand that whatever angst the electorate, they're giving the Peter Dutton they see as the opposition leader, and he shouldn't. It's hard to do this, but he shouldn't take it personally. Like, that's easy to say at a distance, but it happens to be true. When they're piling on you, Peter, they're piling on your nuclear policy or your work from home or your whatever, but he and his family just got to take some time just to breathe, okay? And not to feel... It's not about him.
I tell you what, it is very true. And out of fairness, what I'm going to do, the producers don't know this, we've got space on the desk to help you out here too. We might ask Michaelia to come out of the situation room.
Clive be safe between them.
No, Clive can stay if he wants this space.
It is good fun.
But that's so true. That's the biggest question we have you politicians on, especially on Sunrise all the time.
I'm a Vice-Chancellor.
It's the most... Well, not you.
University of Canberra.
Well, now and then we have you on.
Study their kids.
It's the big...
Here comes Michaelia. She's on her way. I'm giving her the invite. What we might do, whilst Michaelia Cash is on her way to help us out down here on this side of the desk, but let's go to Jodie Lee now. Just check in on the movement at Kirribilli House. Jodie, what's happening?
Good evening, Michael. Well, you can probably hear me, but you might not be able to see me. We're standing right up against the gates here at Kirribilli House so that our 7 News viewers tonight have the first shot. This is a live shot of the front door of Kirribilli House. You can see some movement there. It appears as though a woman's hand is poking out. That's because at any moment now, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese will be making his way from the official residence. I believe that's Penny Wong that you can see there in a red jacket. She is about to make her way with Prime Minister. There's the Prime Minister Anthony Albanese making his way to the official vehicles. They will go under police guard to join the Labor Party faithful and make that victory speech. But they're not just here accompanied by members of the media. So many of their neighbours here in Kirribilli have come down to see them. There are young people in pyjamas, plenty of dogs who are no doubt familiar with Toto Albanese, the official dog. And these bollards are about to come down any moment, guys, so we might have to run. But this is your very first shot of Prime Minister Anthony Albanese re-elected in the year 2025. We're being moved on by AFP officers, but we will stay with you. And our 7 News viewers, we're caught in another person's tripod here, but we will stay with you guys as you get the first shot of Prime Minister Anthony Albanese.
Experiences of this, Jodie, get your camera near the window because quite often they wind it down and say a quick g'day too. So pick which side he's on.
He might be in the mood to chat, Jodie.
Could be.
Tonight? What do you think?
He'll be focused.
Don't you worry, Nat and Michael, we are ready to go with our microphone to see if the Prime Minister...
We'll listen in to you, Jodie. Go for it.
I reckon I'll get to 86, 87.
Cheers from our neighbours here. Penny, there he is, right on this side. Albo, how are you feeling?
You know what? I don't
No
think
response, guys, but Jodie gave us a wave.
Might give me a
Jodie's
bum
given us a
steer. I
wave.
don't think
Who
they're
we
allowed
got
to
there?
wind down the window in those cars now, are they? They're all bulletproof or something. So.
That wasn't very helpful, Michael.
Well, I was trying to help Jodie out there. She was giving us the scoop on the hand waving out of the Kirribilli House. And believe it or not, as we do on these nights, we have motorbike cam too to follow the leaders this weekend.
Oh, here we go. I was hoping we'd have this because this is the most fascinating...
There we go. Actually, yeah, that's a good point. It's about 22, 23 minutes. I mean, the PM Nat Whitey, he'll get an escort all the way, won't he? We know that much, and probably get through Sydney traffic better than most people can ever get through Sydney traffic.
Fair bet there won't be a red light, Michael, between here.
I'll tell you what he can't avoid around there, all of those freeway works. If anyone's been in Sydney recently and knows about them, it's a fair jam down there, but they might lay off the roadworks for tonight to get him through. There's a lot of construction at the end of the road.
Imagine what's going through that gentleman's head, though, is he's sitting in C1 alongside his fiancée. He's just about to claim a victory that looked so unlikely about 6 months ago, and now is a clear, by the numbers as they sit now, looks like a clear majority. The first Labor leader to be re-elected in government since Bob Hawke in 1990. He's a man who has, like most leaders, Bill included, a great sense of history and the importance of it. The adrenaline will be coursing, but it's not a time for self-congratulation. You know, this is an electorate that has been told and didn't need any convincing that it's doing it tough. There are families in Australia who are finding it really difficult to meet their mortgage repayments, to put their kids through school, to pay the car repayments and all those things. So there are real life issues that need leadership in this country. So Anthony Albanese, as he's thinking about what he's going to say to the Labor faithful, there are a lot of people to thank, but he's got to get his messaging right, because it's no time just to pat yourself on the back.
Not
it's
a time for
to
celebration.
talk about the future. This campaign was about it, and the people have voted, and the people always get it right, we're told, and they've chosen the Labor prescription. Well, what is it? What are you going to do for those people? Soak up your moment, inhale the applause, but tell us what you're going to do over the next 3 years to steer us out of the mess that people feel they're in.
Yeah, Mark Riley, we talked about this, the front page of one of the Sydney papers on the very first day of the election screamed, "Inspire us."
Yeah, we gave them a crack too. We gave them a couple of opportunities to inspire the people, and they found it difficult. It was interesting. I guess Anthony Albanese got there and Peter Dutton got there eventually, but it wasn't an inspiring campaign in that regard. It was there was a lot of Me Too on the coalition side, and I understand why too, Jane, and it has to happen. In pure politics, when your opponent comes at you so hard, as Bill did in 2016 and 2019, on a connective voter issue like healthcare and Medicare, and runs that scare again that you're going to dismantle it, and it resonates, and people were worried about that. And I know why you say we're not going to fight them on this policy. We're going to match it. Peter Hart showed a good piece today that just didn't seem to register with people, that you were doing that. But it was $10 billion worth there on bulk billing incentives, and the urgent care clinics were going to be maintained,
More
the
mental
PBS
health.
and mental health, all that. But it just didn't cut through. Why? Because Labor's seen as having a great advantage on those social policies, particularly healthcare. And this guy, Anthony Albanese, has ridden that through electorates from the East Coast to the West Coast and back, and we've seen him do it over the past 5 weeks. It's always, as the great raging Cajun James Carville said to Bill Clinton, it's about the economy, stupid. And in this campaign, Jane, to be kind in the framing of it, I was a bit surprised about the economic message, frankly. If you are, if you're going to prosecute a good argument, a cogent argument for change, you need to have a solid economic alternative. It needs to be structural change. People need to see, okay, this is where we're going. I can back this side to live up to what it tells us is a truism, that they'll always be better on economic management. And what they got was a 25.4 cent a litre shopper docket. And they got $1,200 front-ended at the end of the next financial year back in tax. There wasn't a lot of structural reform there, and I was surprised at that.
Look, I can see where you're coming from, and I think some of that criticism is fair. Of course, the real problem is the budget is in such a structural mess. There is no surplus in sight for the next decade, that you haven't got much to play with there. And if
Jane,
you want to do genuine reform...
As you talk, continue the point. We're going to bring Michaela in as well. I did invite her down. So, Michaela, you come in and help. Jane, continue, sorry.
Doing genuine reform is very, very difficult to do when there's nothing in the coffers. So one of the things that we tried to deliver was a much better bottom line than Labor. And we did $14 billion and a $40 billion reduction to net debt. Because let's face it, and, I think Claire mentioned she was talking about different demographics that are supporting the Labor Party over the Liberal Party. It's going to be the future generations that pay for the profligacy of the current government. And unless you can show a pathway to get that getting better, well, I'm really not sure where to go next, because that is just going to get continually worse under Labor. They have always spent, and they have done in the last 3 years, spent more than they have earned. That is a real concern.
Here's some desk support for you. Michaelia Cash, come on into the studio now if you don't mind. Yeah, a round of applause as well.
Come on down, Michaelia.
Michaelia is my leader, of course, in the Senate.
You can hear the stormtrooper music.
Oh, God, Bill.
That's so
She's tough. She's tough.
Michaelia, welcome.
I'm about to fall over.
Just
that's
watch
all
the
right.
cables.
Just
if you
watch
don't
the
mind.
cables.
Sorry about
The
that.
seat between Clive and Jane there.
The
Thank you
cavalry
for
arrives.
joining us down here.
I don't know if I've ever had so many people saying we want Michaelia.
Nice to have some
But it was the way Bill was grinning that worried me. It's like, hold on,
We felt Jane needed some help on the deck.
Jane Fairley said it was stacks on a minute ago. So, yeah, there you go.
Michaelia, you've been up there in this situation room.
Yep.
You know the situation, obviously.
Yes, I do.
Let's get your response because poor Jane's been here by herself on your side.
Jane's been doing a fantastic job as well. Look, it was not the night that the Coalition wanted. I mean, I was there in 2019 when it was not the night that Labor wanted and certainly not the night that Bill Shorten wanted. And, Bill, I did appreciate your comments in relation to what you said about Peter because it's actually true. You know what that feels like. But at the end of the day, this is now the result. The Australian people have made a decision. I do agree with Jane, though. There are still votes to be counted, and I'm a huge believer, and I think anybody who has voted for us would hate to think that Jane and myself are sitting here tonight saying it's all over. It's not all over. It's not all over until that last vote is counted. So, with due respect to all of those people out there who have voted for their Liberal candidate, I'm not going to give a final call on anything. Mr Albanese's won the election, that's very clear. However, in relation to individual seats, until each vote is counted, I'm going to wait out of due respect for the people who voted for us.
Well, where's the tiny bit of hope then? Where might it help you? Where are some of the seats?
Well, at this point in time, we're still waiting in particular for the results to come in from Western Australia. We are 2 hours behind, as you know. So at this point in time, there's not a lot of data yet coming out of WA. I would certainly hope that we can, hold the seats we have. I was always very realistic in Western Australia, though. We obviously don't have a huge team on the ground, and in particular prior to the state election we literally had one person on the ground, so the infrastructure was just not there. I had always been very realistic that if we could hold what we have and potentially pick up Bullwinkle, that would actually be a reasonable result.
The newest seat in Australia.
The newest seat in Australia, quite literally. And at this point in time, there's just not enough data yet to actually say where we're going.
Michaelia, have you texted with Peter Dutton in the last half hour or so?
I've actually been up in the Situation Room talking to people up there, so I haven't had an opportunity to do that yet, unfortunately, no. But I can assure you, I mean, I am one of Peter's backers. I think he's done an outstanding job. I will not sit here on national TV and undermine the man who has served our party so well. And as I said, that's what I said, I appreciated what Bill said. Because, Bill, you know what it's like, and it's not nice to sit there on national TV and not have the outcome that you want. But Peter's held this seat since 2001. It has been one of the most marginal seats in our country since 2001.
Cheryl Kerno.
Every single election. Let's face it. Labor throw the kitchen sink and then a little bit more at Peter Dutton. Again, there's still a lot of votes to be counted. And Clive spammed everybody. That's a conversation I think we could all have tonight.
Clive, I should have asked you. You've got everyone's number. Have you spammed Peter Dutton in the last half hour?
Wait till you get home tonight. You'll have a surprise for you.
Oh, no. On behalf of Australia.
Anyway, I just think we should have a look at the seat of Clare, which is a National Party seat which seems to have fallen to an independent, right? So we've seen a couple of National Party seats falling, right? And I think this plays in the dynamics of the coalition too.
Well, that's a good chance to go back to Hugh Whitfield, because I know he's having a look at his numbers, which may well include that as well. We might get to Clare. Hugh, do you want to take it away for a second?
Yeah, let's start in WA. We'll start at Bullwinkle. It's the brand new electorate in this election. It is the toughest one to call. Now, notionally, it's a Labor seat, stretching from the eastern suburbs of Perth, Calamunda out to places like Northam and York in the countryside. At the moment on the primary vote. Now, I've got to say, this is a very early numbers, about 3% of the vote counted, but the vote is splitting all over the place. Trish Cook ahead on the primary vote, about 1,000 votes for her, about 800 for Matt Moran, the Liberal, and then you've got the Nationals candidate, Mia Davies. Very high profile in WA. She's the former opposition leader when the Nats won more seats than the Liberals in the state parliament. She's polling pretty well in those places where we've got data at this stage, but a big vote for the Greens and not too bad for One Nation. Way too early for 2PP. It's one we're going to be keeping an eye on, but the vote scattered all over the place. Let's look at a couple of other WA seats as well. Let's go to Cowan in Perth, stretching from Balcatta out to Lansdale. Now, very early numbers for Anne Ali, but we are projecting that even at this stage, Anne Ali will return to Parliament. That is an ALP hold. In the seat of Perth as well, in the city centre, Patrick Gorman, really early numbers, less than 1% of the vote, but our data and our projection says that that is a comfortable ALP hold. He would get home on Green preferences regardless. Don't look at the percentages. It's way too early. Our computer was calling it this afternoon anyway without that data. Clive Palmer was talking about Calare, which we can have a look at. Now, this is a seat that was held by the Nationals' Andrew Gee. He quit the Nationals party room partway through the 2022 term. The seat of Calare in central western New South Wales. We'll be able to bring that up. Now, the Nationals' Sam Farraway running for the Nats. You've got Kate Hook, who ran last time as a Teal-backed independent who tried to take it off Andrew Gee. The Nationals trying to get it back into their party room. If we look at the two-party preferred, it's too early to call this seat at this stage, but Kate Hook's preferences are flowing through to Andrew Gee. He looks on track to be returned as an independent MP, albeit a former National. He'd likely back a coalition government, but it doesn't matter because we're looking at a Labor majority. We are saying a Labor majority. So that is a full-blown Nationals loss. In the central west of New South Wales, places like Orange, Bathurst, Mudgee, it is a big loss for the Nats. They'll struggle to get it back in the years ahead.
Okay, while we're going to come back to the Des, but I'd love you, Hugh, to look at Forest, the southwest of WA, Liberal seat, as you would know, Riles, for 50-odd years. Sue Chapman, the Climate 200 candidate, as...
Can I tell you another one, Nat, very similarly to that, is the seat of Bean in the People's Republic of the ACT, where a Teal independent with the David Pocock brand, I think is subservient to the Teal brand, is running very strongly, and preferences will be very interesting there. You've got a Liberal candidate who's running third, the Greens fourth, so I'd imagine that David Smith's on about 40% of the first preference. Jesse Price, whose first-time candidate, is 27.3, and with the Lib at 22, the Green around 9. So that's close to 50-50 in a seat that Labor should hold comfortably.
I was handing out there at down in Canberra. That booth, by the way, where I was, is done okay for Dave.
Dave is on the back there, Dave.
You mean Dave Smith, not Dave Pocock?
No, Dave Smith. And the problem is Dave Smith's done a great job. There's not enough Bill Shorten around to go around.
So humble.
He's you can afford to laugh at yourself. Maybe some of the Libs should try it. It might do in the world of mental health.
He's straight in there as well.
No. But we'll see how Dave goes. He's worked hard there, but it's one of those sort of situations where he's being pincered on the left and the right. The Greens are preferencing and the Libs are preferencing the Teal. So anyway, Dave's 1 against 3, and we'll see how he goes.
Okay, Claire, you were looking at some?
Actually, Nat, I was just wanting to jump back into the cost of living issue, and we had a bit of a discussion before about the petrol promise from the Liberals and why wasn't that cutting through. I think one of the other key moments of this campaign was those incredible debates. We were very well served for debates this election campaign, and we had a couple where ordinary people got to ask questions of the Prime Minister and the opposition leader. And something I really took from those discussions was they were talking about Medicare, bulk billing, they were talking about HECS, they were talking about NDIS and public service cuts. All of these things that Labor had a really good answer to, fee-free take, things like that. And with the Liberals you know, the petrol promise was just not enough, just too little too late. And you do have to just ask yourself what was happening for the preceding 2 years before we got to the election campaign. Why weren't these really rich ideas coming forward much sooner?
So expensive,
so you can campaign on them all. But you did get there eventually, Jane. You did get there eventually.
Free TAFE. You know, so expensive, but no one's finishing their TAFE. They're starting, they're not finishing.
That's so disrespectful. That is so
true.
disrespectful, Jane. And I have to tell you, this comes up on the door knocking I've done all the time. So looks like we've probably won the seat of Bass. I'm just checking your tally over there. You know, that was one that Labor was not certain to pick up. I door knocked with a wonderful candidate down there. Fee-free TAFE comes up in probably 1 of 3 conversations, not motivated by us, but by the person, because this is the way that those families are using to get themselves into a better position, earning a better wage and a better salary. Take that away from them. What hope have these people got of educating themselves better and progressing themselves?
The HECS thing, I think every second young voter I met out on the trail, I said, what's motivating your vote? And they said, 20% off my HECS, I'm getting $8,000.
I think that the HECS argument was very powerful with that demographic. Of course, you know, the counter argument is anybody that had already paid off their HECS didn't get the discount, and future students won't get any advantage from it. And the other factor is that the reason why HECS is high is because inflation is high.
But the argument that because we didn't get it once upon a time, we shouldn't give it now, that's an argument against paid parental leave, isn't it? Because mums didn't get it in the past. So this argument that because I didn't get HECS fee relief in the past, therefore we won't give it to anyone else. Young people in Australia, they've got some challenges. The cost of education, the cost of living, the Medicare, housing. And again, it's free advice, but I'm not sure that young people feel heard by the coalition. You might think that they do. I don't think they do feel heard by the policies that you're offering them.
No, I can agree with you there that demographic is not flocking to the coalition. However, I think what they don't understand is somebody pays for that eventually, and it will be them. It will be those younger people that pay for it through higher taxes.
Here we go, just follow Peter Dutton now.
Thank you. Where do you think your campaign went wrong, Mr Dutton?
Thank you very much. We're going to make a statement and then we'll have some comment after that. Thank you.
It's been a long 5 weeks.
I've seen those many questions before.
That's how wonderfully persistent Isabel Mullen.
Never say
Hats off for trying.
Super tough. Oh, super tough.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, tonight's not the night that we wanted for the Liberal Party or for our coalition or indeed for our country. But we've worked hard every day over the course of the last 3 years to do our best for our amazing country. Great honours of being the leader of this party is that we have met people from every side, every corner, the length and breadth of this country. And there are many amazing stories. People who have sacrificed, people who are doing it hard at the moment. And I've always wanted in public life for the best for our country and the best for every Australian. The highlight of my career has been as the Defence Minister, and over the course of this campaign, on Anzac Day, we caught up with young veterans in Townsville at the RSL, and it reminded me of how lucky we are as a country. And I want to acknowledge all of those men and women in uniform who keep us safe as a country. Now, we didn't do well enough during this campaign. That much is obvious tonight, and I accept full responsibility for that. Earlier on, I called the Prime Minister to congratulate him on his success tonight. It's an historic occasion for the Labor Party, and we recognise that. I congratulated the Prime Minister and wished he and Jodie and Nathan all the very best. And I said to the Prime Minister that his mum would be incredibly proud of his achievement tonight, and he should be very proud of what he's achieved. Thank you. I also had the pleasure of speaking with Ali France, and Ali and I have been combatants for a number of elections now, but she was successful in Dickson tonight, and she will do a good job as a local member. She lost her son Henry, which is a tragic circumstance that no parent should ever go through. And equally, I said to Ali that her son Henry would be incredibly proud of her tonight, and she'll do a good job as a local member for Dickson, and I wish her all the very best, please. Now, it's been a great honour to be leader of this amazing party for the last 3 years. And I want to firstly acknowledge David Littleproud, who has been a great partner in crime. He's led the National Party with great distinction. He's had the strength of character to stand up on issues which are important to us, and we've worked incredibly well together. He's done a great job, and he will do into the future. I want to say thank you very much to Susan Lee as my deputy, and also Angus Taylor as a shadow treasurer, and other senior members who have contributed to the success of the last couple of years. I also want to say a very, very big thank you tonight, most importantly, to the millions of Australians who have supported the Liberal Party, the Coalition. It's not our night, as I point out, and there are good members, good candidates who have lost their seats or their ambition, and I'm sorry for that. We have an amazing party and we'll rebuild. Can I say thank you very much to John Olsen as the president of the party. He's done a fantastic job, to Andrew Hurst and all of the Secretariat for the work that they've done. I want to say thank you to my staff who are just amazing, led by Alex Dalgleish, Jody, Martine, Jackie, Selma, all of the EO staff, my advanced team, the AFP, who have done an amazing job for our family. And I want to say thank you very much. Thank you. I have the best media team in the country, led by Nicole Chant and Adrian Barrett and their team. They've done an amazing job, and I'm so grateful to them. And to all of our loyal staff, thank you very much. That leaves me, of course, with the hardest part, that is my amazing family. Australians have seen... Please, yeah. Thank you. I'm blessed to have an amazing family in Kirralie, in Beck and Harry and Tom, and they... Please, yeah. Thank you. They've stood by me through thick and thin, and I'm so grateful for their support and their love. Can I say thank you to the people of Dickson and to our amazing supporters in Dickson. Dickson had a one-term curse. It was only ever held for one term at a time, and we've held it for 24 years, which is an amazing achievement. 24 years is a long time to be in public life, and it has been an amazing honour. But I do want to say thank you to the people of Dickson who have placed faith in me over a long period of time. And we've had lots of battles and lots of campaigns. Ultimately, we've been able to deliver an amazing outcome for our local community. To residents and to people that we've been able to help, people who were with loved ones who were sick and stranded, infrastructure projects. There are many ways in which we've been able to provide amazing support, and I want to say thank you very much to them. Our Liberal family is hurting across the country tonight, but including in my electorate of Dickson, and I want to say thank you very much to all of them. They are amazing people dedicated to their country. Ultimately, we live in the best country in the world, and I've always believed that. I always will. I love this country and I've fought hard for it. We've been defined by our opponents in this election, which is not the true story of who we are. But we'll rebuild from here. We'll do that because we know our values, we know our beliefs, and we'll always stick to them. I want to say thank you to the Australian people for the faith they've placed in me, and thank them for the great honour of having been the member for Dickson and the leader of the opposition. Thank you very much. Thank you.
They're making one of the hardest speeches he would have to make of his life. What a tough night for him, Michaelia Cash. Watching him make that would have been hard for the whole Liberal family.
Oh, look, absolutely. But as you would expect from a great leader, that was a great speech. And what I liked about Peter was there was no bitterness, there was no recriminations, but more than that, He looked at the Australian people and he looked at the Liberal Party and the people who voted for us in particular and said, I take full responsibility. That, to me, defines the leadership of Peter Dutton. That is a true leader. And I think it is a great loss for us. As I said, though, I'm not declaring anything on Dixon until the final vote is counted. But as he said, you know, that is a seat that literally was held for one term. He's held it for 24 years. And it was a marginal seat. And I think a lot of Australians sometimes forget that when you see a member of the House of Representatives in for such a long period of time, I think you often jump to, well, they must have a safe seat. They keep getting elected every 3 years without actually understanding. There are some good members on both sides, quite frankly, who do win, but they win because they actually are a good member, and it is the people of their community who back them in time and time again, and that's what you saw with Peter Dutton.
Let's just take in this moment, though, Makati, because this is something extraordinary we've just watched here. Not only the leader conceding that the election is lost, and he has lost, but he has lost his seat as well. Bill Shorten?
Well, there's no doubt that, first of all, Peter Dutton and his family, a really tough night. It was a gracious speech, so that's hard. But we have seen history made, ladies and gentlemen of Australia. No opposition leader federally has ever lost their seat in an election. And, you know, the Liberal Party is going to have a lot of soul-searching. I don't... Yeah, we can pile in. Yes, I don't think their campaign was any good. Clearly the voters didn't. With still votes to count, and there's still a couple of seats where Labor's, you know, doing it, good Labor candidates doing tough in, but the nation has said that they want stability. I think they've said they want politics to be in the centre. I actually think they probably said they want to see building, not cuts. I think they've said that they want to see us come together. It is remarkable in this country that 18 million people can assemble, they can vote, we can make a decision, and the nation doesn't splinter. So I've got goosebumps. Anthony Albanese has exceeded expectations. He backed himself in. Last year he thought he could pull this result off. He's backed himself when a lot of other people probably weren't so convinced. This is a big night for Australia. When governments change or governments get elected, nations change. And so Labor's got a big opportunity here. It's got to live up to the promises it's made. I think it will, but it's a big honour that's been given to Labor, and it's a tough night for the coalition.
Clive Palmer, are you taking any credit in bringing down Peter Dutton tonight?
Certainly not. I wouldn't dare do a thing like that. But I'd say I would just make the comment that we started 6 weeks ago. Mr. Dutton was four or 5 points ahead, and he seems to have fallen a bit behind. He hasn't kept up with the game. But I think we should have a look at Banks and News also. They're two Liberal seats which are about to fall, right? And just to give you an idea of the flavour, how we're making the salad, how it's going along.
Missing a few ingredients at this stage from the Conservative side, I'd say.
Two we haven't looked at, right?
Yeah, we're going to pull up Banks for you.
There it is there on the screen right now.
Talk us through that, Clive.
So 53.3%. Yeah.
Substantial ALP gain. And if we look at the swing to Labor in that seat, it's 6% to the ALP. If we go to the seat of Hughes, you'll see the similar result, swinging to Labor. So these are Liberal seats in New South Wales. They're all swinging to the Labor Party.
Should also say to Tanya Plibersek, welcome back to the panel as well. I thought you were on your way to Anthony Albanese there. But
I actually, I do want to head off in a minute because I've got my branch members waiting for me like about 5 minutes from here. And Bill mentioned how tough a night this is for Peter Dutton's family. And, you know, most of us have been through it in various iterations at different times, different elections. It is very hard on families when you suffer a loss like this. So, you know, we are thinking of them. It's also a very hard night, I think, for his party members in the seat. None of us get there on our own. Right. All of us rely on the people who vote for us, the people who work for us. We've had right across the country thousands of people out today handing out how to votes. Also the PNCs doing the sausage sizzle and the cake stalls and so on. Our democracy is a marvellous democracy, but it relies on volunteers And we've got to spend a moment thanking all of those people who have participated today, put their heart and soul into this, some of them for many weeks. You know, I met people who took 4 weeks of annual leave to stand, you know, to be door knocking, to be phone calling, to be standing on pre-poll for 2 weeks, like literally 2 weeks standing on pre-poll every day from dawn till dusk. There are volunteers around the country on our side tonight who deserve to be and should be proud of themselves. I'm going to go and thank mine in a minute.
No, you should. I actually agree. You should.
Can I just mention, also, I might just mention my beautiful volunteers in Hotham who are celebrating tonight, and I spoke to them on Zoom just earlier. And I just agree with everything that Tanya said. You know, to be honest, you know, Peter Dutton's not my favourite person in the world, but seeing him there with his beautiful kids, you know, that really gets you, doesn't it? Because it's so hard for our kids to watch us do what we do, and to have to suffer a very public defeat like this is a huge thing. We've got to remember Peter Dutton, you know, didn't just serve his community as a minister and opposition leader. He was a police officer. He was a Home Affairs Minister, he was a Defence Minister, and then the Leader of the Opposition. He's lived an entire life here in public service, and I just want to pay respect to the work that he's done, and what was a very gracious speech there, particularly about our Labor candidate, Ailey France.
And
Peter Dutton and I agree on one thing. Ailey France is fantastic.
They're just such public jobs, aren't they? And like I was about to say before, we have you on TV all the time. And people say to us all the time, what are they really like? Because you are public figures and they're really curious what you like to chat with. So people sort of feel like you come into their lounge room and they want to know. And you're just human beings, and when you lose your job, you lose it on national television. So that's what's happening tonight. So thank you very much for sharing that with us.
But whilst we're all being kind, in the next few weeks, your party's going to go through some machinations to try and find a leader.
Let's get into it.
And it's about to... Phil Shorten.
Just like you did in 2019.
I'm now an academic. I'm now at university. For me, it's a theory.
But look, there'll be some serious hard conversations to be had in the weeks ahead. At the start of the night, Jane Hume, Bill Shorten suggested maybe you better get out of the Senate and get into the House of Reps somehow and give it a go. Will you?
I don't know whether that's the
throw your
solution.
hat in the ring?
As somebody
Hang on, just think about it for a second.
What seat?
You're going to have a few you can run in if they're Labor.
Before we do that, look, I was actually one of the authors of the review of the last election that we lost, and I think the first thing I'm going to be doing tomorrow is going through that election review, because there were a number of recommendations.
Did they listen to you?
To see exactly what it was. It was me and Brian Loughnane. Let's just see exactly what it was.
That was just a drive-by of Brian Loughnane. It's not his fault.
Brian and I worked very well together on that review, and I think we'll go through and we'll see exactly what it was that we recommended after the last election, and see exactly how much of that had been implemented this election, because there are some similarities I can see.
Will you do a cut and paste though, or no? Will you have something new?
Chat GPT's handy. You know.
Did you know though? And I think
thank you for those very disrespectful remarks. The extraordinary amount of work that we have done on this, and the extraordinary amount of work that we need to do. There is no doubt about that. But you know, turning a party around is not an easy thing to do, and we're going to need to start from scratch with great candidates, great policies, and great organisations behind
we
them.
did that between 2013 and 2016, and in our first outing we got 15 seats off Malcolm. I don't know, has Malcolm tweeted tonight yet? Have we heard from him?
Do you know, ultimately though, with seats still being counted, tonight's you don't sit here now on live TV when seats are still being counted, when candidates have lost their seat, and talk about what's going to happen.
Exactly.
Let me tell you what's going to happen tomorrow. I'm going to pick up the phone and call candidates, and exactly what you've said. Thank people. Yeah. Thank people for working their guts out for us, because they lost tonight. And that's not a great feeling for them. I'm not going to be focusing on what is going to be happening in the Liberal Party in the weeks to come. I'm going to focus on the people who matter to us as
MPs were doing that on Wednesday and Thursday, talking to newspapers, saying it was a bad campaign, all our policies were late. Angus had 3 years to write a tax policy, he didn't do it. Your MPs have been talking to papers for days.
But ultimately, the next few days are about saying thank you to the people who volunteered for us.
So no one's going to talk about leadership.
But when Anthony Albanese and Labor wake up tomorrow, the reality for them now is they now have to deliver on all of the promises that they made to the Australian people.
And we can't wait.
No, but I can't wait for a decision on the North West Shelf. Seriously, Tanya, and I hope it's a positive one. I really do, because we need our gas supply in Western Australia. We really do. That becomes the reality now.
Just give me 2 seconds here. It is indeed, but I just want to quickly check in. Tim Lester, let's go to you. You can hear us, I know. You're at the door where Anthony Albanese will exit pretty quickly to come to the stage. Tim?
He's right there.
Michael, I can barely hear you, so if that was a question, I'm not doing particularly well, but there's a lot of anticipation down here now. We've seen a couple of key figures come in. Paul Erickson, of course, who essentially guided this campaign, but a couple of ministers like Tony Burke is now in the room, and others gathering, obviously expecting Anthony Albanese any second to come out on stage up to my left. And when he does, this place will be deafening. Already senior Labor figures saying that Anthony Albanese essentially now sits in the Labor ranks, only Bob Hawke alongside him, given tonight's victory. So he is now enters the pantheon of Labor heroes very much. This victory quite remarkable, stunning to everybody in the room. We're seeing tears in some cases, a great deal of joy, and obviously a mood for a quite tremendous party as the night goes on here, guys.
Yeah, all right, Tim, thank you very much. There was a question in there, but you answered it very, very well regardless. But let's contrast this, Tanya and Claire in particular, with you. Yes, a celebration amongst the people who've worked hard within the party, but there's going to have to be a fairly reasonable, sombre message from the Prime Minister that in the morning it's still business as usual and down to business. People still struggling with cost of living issues. They want answers. They've now chosen Anthony Albanese, your party, to get back into power because they believe it's going to be better for them financially, economically, socially. What's the Prime Minister and what are you going to have to do from day one tomorrow morning? Hold on.
We might just go back to Labor HQ. Looks like there's some cheering going on. We're just making sure that the Prime Minister isn't about to walk out.
Tanya and Claire, you can talk under this though as well, and we'll stop talking when the Prime Minister comes out, if you want to answer the question. Tanya?
100%. I think it's very clear that people are still very focused on cost of living. We'll continue to support lower taxes, higher wages, cost of living relief, cheaper childcare, cheaper medicines, more fee-free TAFE, better Medicare.
Let's just have a listen. Is that Albo there, Tanya?
Yeah. It might be Toto, I don't know.
Yes. Could well be. Sorry, continue. Yeah.
No, we know that people have put cost of living at the top of their list of priorities, and will continue a laser-like focus on that. It's an uncertain world. There's a lot of instability. We'll continue to work internationally as well on making sure that we're diversifying our trading relationships, that Australian goods and services are getting into markets around the world. It's very important for our national prosperity. It's very hard not to be totally focused on when the curtain's going to twitch and the Prime Minister's
Well,
going to
actually,
come
you know
out.
what? I'm just remembering the last election where it was a win for Anthony Albanese and he was very happy. But I think he told a few of the faithful off as soon as he got up there the last time.
he did.
He had to pull them into line, saying, "Hang on, just to settle down for a minute," which he did.
Well, Penny Wong is coming out to introduce him. Is that right? Is that what we're expecting?
I'd expect so.
I think that's what we said last time. So we'll wait for the cheers. Claire?
You know, just following from what Tanya was saying, just one thing, you know, Anthony Albanese said he's been underestimated his whole political career. No one will ever underestimate Anthony Albanese again. This is a pretty remarkable thing that's happened here. But one thing that, you know, Tanya and Bill and I both know really well about the PM is his sense of duty that drives him. He, he's yet to say his words, but he will want to get straight down to work, because we do know there are real issues and real pressures facing Australians at the moment, and that's why we have constructed this really serious agenda to address those issues. In my area of housing, for example, we've got massive amounts of work to do to deliver the housing that's needed to address some of the pressures people are facing.
Here we go, the chant's on for Albo. Let's have a quick listen. much. Mulaney, you're in the crowd, I think. Just give us an idea of what's going on. There we go. Let's have a listen to Penny Wong.
Thank you, friends. Thank you all. Thank you for believing in Labor. Thank you for believing in the power of this great nation. The power in our 26 million people from more than 300 ancestries. And from the oldest continuing civilisation on the planet. And I acknowledge the traditional owners. Friends, we love this country. We love this country. And representing it to the world is the honour of my life. Because of who we are and what we strive to be. A nation that stands on its own 2 feet, that invests in the aspirations of all of its people, and a nation of courage and of kindness. I saw this purpose and these principles in our campaign across the country. Our hard-working candidates, the thousands of Labor volunteers in every state and territory, in every community, working for a better future. Friends, 3 years ago, the Australian people made a collective decision to turn the page and write a new future for ourselves. Tonight, together, we start the new chapter. And we will write this next chapter so all Australians are part of our nation's story. No matter who we are or where we come from, no matter age or gender, no matter the lottery of birth, Australia's opportunity is for us all. And friends, that Australian story is embodied by our Australian Prime Minister, a man who shows what real strength is, a man of courage, a man of compassion, a leader with the conviction of who we are and what we can be, a leader with a conviction that builds Australia's future. Friends, some might want to mimic the worst of other countries. Albo always backs what's best about our country. Please welcome my dear friend, our Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese.
My fellow Australians, Serving as your Prime Minister is the greatest honour of my life. And it is with a deep sense of humility and a profound sense of responsibility that the first thing that I do tonight is to say thank you to the people of Australia for the chance to continue to serve the best nation on earth. And I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet. And I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging today and every day. Today, the Australian people have voted for Australian values. For fairness, aspiration and opportunity for all. For the strength to show courage in adversity and kindness to those in need. And Australians have voted for a future that holds true to these values, a future built on everything that brings us together as Australians and everything that sets our nation apart from the world. In this time of global uncertainty, Australians have chosen optimism and determination. Australians have chosen to face global challenges the Australian way, looking after each other while building for the future. And to serve these values, meet these challenges, seize these opportunities and build that better and stronger future, Australians have chosen a majority Labor government. Have got the name. A majority Labor government promised and delivered. A short time ago, I spoke with Peter Dutton, who has, of course, conceded defeat. And I thanked him. No. What we do in Australia is we treat people with respect. I thanked Peter for his generous words at the end of what has been a very hard-fought campaign. And I want to take this opportunity to wish Peter and Kirralie and their family all the very best for their future. Now, at election time, parties and candidates ask people to make a choice. And inevitably, the campaign and the coverage is about our differences and our disagreements. That is the nature of our democracy, and it is the role of the media who serve it. But now that the Australian people have made their clear choice, let us all reflect on what we have in common. Because no matter who you voted for, no matter where you live, no matter how you worship or who you love, whether you belong to a culture that has known and cared for this great continent for 65,000 years, or you have chosen our nation as your home and enriched our society with your contribution, we are all Australians. So let all of us work together to build our national unity on the enduring foundations of fairness, equality and respect for one another. My fellow Australians, I know the world has thrown a lot at our country over the past 3 years. I know so many of you have worked hard in the face of significant challenges, and I know there's still much more to do to help people under pressure. That is why it means so much that in these uncertain times, the people of Australia have placed their trust in Labor once again, including so many Australians who have voted Labor for the first time. I make this solemn pledge. We will not forget that. We will never take it for granted. Repaying your trust will drive our government each and every day of the next 3 years. The positive program we took to this election was shaped by the Australian people's priorities, and our government will dedicate the next 3 years to making a positive difference to your lives and to your future, bringing the rewards for your hard work within reach, investing in our youngest Australians, looking after older Australians, and building an economy and a society that is every bit as strong and fair, as resilient and generous as Australians are themselves. From tomorrow, back at work. Maybe not everyone here. And that's probably for the best. We take up this task with new hope, new confidence and new determination. Because together we are turning the corner, and together we will make our way forward with no one held back and no one left behind. Friends, I was raised to be an optimist. My mum had a hard life and we struggled financially. But she taught me to always be positive and see the best in people. When it comes to Australia's future, all of us have so much reason to be optimistic. Because when we look at everything going on around the world today, when we consider the changes that will shape the future of the global economy, when we think about our people and their smarts and skills, truly there's nowhere else you'd rather be than right here in Australia. This is a time of profound opportunity for our nation. We have everything we need to seize this moment and make it our own. And we must do it together, all of us, because for Australia to realise our full potential, for our nation to be its very best, every Australian must have the opportunity to be their best. To serve our Australian values, we must value every Australian, and Labor will govern for every Australian. Every Australian who wants a fair go at work, fair wages for their work, and the right to disconnect when they're done with work. Every Australian who deserves the security of a roof over their head or dreams of owning their own home. Every woman who wants her contribution to our economy and society to be valued equally. Every parent who wants their child to get the best start in life with cheaper childcare and with fair funding for every student in every school. Everyone who counts on the National Disability Insurance Scheme. We will be a government for every Australian who wants to train or retrain for new skills and a good job at public TAFE. Every Australian who works hard for the life-changing opportunity of higher education and wants 20% cut from their student debt. Every Australian who knows that climate change is a challenge we must act together to meet for the future of our environment. And knows the fact that renewable energy is an opportunity we must work together to seize for the future of our economy. We will be a government that supports reconciliation with First Nations people because we will be a stronger nation when we close the gap between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians. And friends, we will be a government that relies and helps every Australian who relies on Medicare. Because this card This card is not Labor red or Liberal blue, it is green and gold. It is a declaration of our national values in our national colours. Medicare belongs to all Australians, and together we will make it stronger for all Australians. Friends, I stand here tonight as the proud leader of an extraordinary team. I stood on the hallowed turf of the G this morning, doing live crosses making that point. I want to thank all of my colleagues, beginning with my friend, our incredible Deputy Prime Minister, Richard Marles. No one could hope for a better deputy, and I thank him so much. My friend and our Senate leader, Penny Wong, and her deputy, Don Farrell. Our economic team led by Jim Chalmers and Katie Gallagher. Our campaign spokesperson, Jason Clare. And we've got a bit of a shared party tonight, and Berkey's here, the member for Watson. My amazing Labor caucus, which when you look at it across the benches, it's representative of the Australian people. I acknowledge all of our fantastic Labor candidates in every seat who put up their hand, gave up their time for our cause and their community. And if you excuse me for singling out one of them who ran for a third time in Dixon, Ailey Frantz. So many of whom will be joining us as caucus members in Parliament. I want to thank the people of Grayndler, most of whom are here tonight. I've got to say something, it was very special on the way here. There was obviously, I don't know whether there was a drone above us or what have you. My security team said, you know, maybe they're just out on the street. People don't just hang out on New Canterbury Road. And from Lilyfield, Leichhardt, all the way here, I'm sorry, but I won't be moving back for a little while. The people of Grayndler did me an incredible honour in choosing me as their representatives 29 years and 10 elections ago. I've lived in this community in the Inner West my whole life, and it's an incredible privilege to serve a community that you love, and I do love it. To the Labor Party's heart and soul, our rank and file members and the mighty trade union movement of Australia. The Labor Party will always stand up for jobs and people's wages and conditions. Everywhere I have been through this campaign, your energy, your enthusiasm, your dedication to the cause has lifted me up. You inspire all of us in your service of working people, and we thank you. To our magnificent campaign director, National Secretary Paul Erickson. Paul has run an outstanding campaign. Paul and I did tell people May was the right time. And he managed to become a dad during the campaign. He was supported by an absolutely brilliant team. And all of those dedicated people own a part of this victory. And I thank you. To my personal staff, led by Tim Gartrell. The loyalty, the passion, the commitment that you showed. You have a tough job that you perform with grace, with humour, with joy, and just a passion for changing the country for the better. Thank you for what you do. To my son Nathan. Who's grown into a fine young man who I am just so proud of. Thank you. And to my fiancée, Jodie Hayden. probably wasn't expecting for this to be in your life half a dozen years ago. I am so grateful for your support, your friendship and your love. You make me so happy. Which matters. You have my heart, I love you, and I look forward to living our lives together. My fellow Australians, Australians have chosen the Australian Labor Party as their government. And our government will choose the Australian way because we are proud of who we are and all that we have built together in this country. We do not need to beg or borrow or copy from anywhere else. We do not seek our inspiration overseas. We find it right here in our values and in our people. Tomorrow we dedicate ourselves to your service. We renew the great responsibility and the opportunity of government. And with pride and purpose, optimism and determination, with faith in the fair go and faith in each other, we return to the work of building Australia's future. Thank you all.
On that, we'll pay attention. There you go, the Prime Minister there. We were just chatting amongst ourselves on the panel there. Clive was promising to spam us all again.
No, Clive.
But a very moving speech by the Prime Minister, almost like a campaign launch, in fact, laying out how the next term of his majority Labor government is going to operate, behave and deliver to the Australian people. And a round of applause, obviously, from Claire and Bill on the desk here.
We enjoyed that, didn't we?
Very strong, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The strongest and most confident we've seen him for a long time, I would say.
Absolutely. I loved the optimism and that sense of opportunity that he was able to convey there, but also at the same time acknowledging that, you know, the hard work starts from tomorrow and we've got a really big job ahead of us, lots of issues facing the country, and I know he can't get to work and neither can I.
Well, it was listen, this is Anthony Albanese's victory. But let's not sugarcoat it. Let's not give credit. It's everyone. It's the team. Paul Erickson, the campaign maestro. But Anthony Albanese believed in himself. He backed himself. People would have written him off. And he is now, I thought, speaking as well as I've seen him speak. He's got that confidence, the mandate. He's done something which hasn't been done from Labor since Bob Hawke. He's a figure of history. And I'm excited. Let's see what happens tomorrow. We get that the people have given him trust. And now we've got to get on with the issues that affect the people. Thank God this election's over and we can get on with stuff.
A lot of people are nodding out there when you say that.
Thank God we can get on with stuff.
Are you regretting getting out of it, though?
No, I had a great run and I'm very grateful for every day I had in it. But I've got this great job at the University of Canberra and I get to work with young people and researchers and staff. But this is good. And for higher education and for the uni students and I breathe a little sigh of relief. This is good.
Yeah.
Look, the numbers are still coming in, though, and there are some interesting shifts, even though the result is very, very clear and it's going to matter in many, many electorates around Australia. Hugh, let's run through them.
Michael, let's take a look at the tally board because that red wave has crashed through the crossbench, even picking up some green seats in places like Brisbane and Griffith and spread right in deep into coalition territory. They are losing seats, the coalition, that they never thought were even in play tonight. This is an absolute low watermark for the coalition. We can only get them to 35 seats at the moment. 50 is an absolute historic low watermark. So if they don't get to 40, which we're seeing they're struggling to get to 40 at the moment. That is a historic loss in the history of the modern-day Liberal Party, let alone the coalition. Look at that size of the Labor majority. More than, we've got them at 12-seat majority at this stage. They don't need to worry about the crossbench. They don't even have to talk to the Teal independents if they don't want to anymore. In WA, we've got about 20% of the vote counted. We've already projected 9 seats for the ALP. The coalition stuck on 3 at the moment in WA. Labor started the night on 9, so they may even improve on where they were at the start of the night. In South Australia, Labor started the night on 6 seats. We project they've already won 7. The coalition stuck on 2, and then Rebecca Sharkey in Mayo as well. In Victoria, now, people speak about Victoria and where the Liberals might have made ground in the suburbs. Wow. Any protest vote against Labor in Labor because of the Labor state government in Victoria has not gone to the coalition. It's gone to the Greens, and those preferences have flown through to Labor. So at least they're going to come at least 1 seat ahead. They started the night on 24. Labor will finish on at this stage on 25. It may even be more in the hours to come as the counting progresses. In New South Wales, 46 seats on offer. The ALP started the night on, we say, 26. They've made gains there. The coalition has gone backwards. They are in tough fights in places like up the North Coast, places like Page and Cowper, Cowper in particular, where the Nationals may lose to an independent. They've lost Calare to an independent as well, potentially, although Andrew Gee in a fight with the Nationals. So they're going backwards and losing to the independents, losing to Labor. And Queensland, they had 2 leaders for the coalition from Queensland. David Littleproud in Maranoa, he keeps his seat. Peter Dutton loses his seat. The LNP started the night with 21 seats. At this stage, we project they've lost at least 7. The ALP, we project, has picked up 7 seats in Queensland.
God.
An incredible result for Labor, even in spite of what we saw in the state election a couple of months ago where the LNP won big. The LNP has gone backwards big time tonight and lost their leader.
Yeah, well, Hugh, you called this first, but that's an incredible story right across the country. And as you say, we sat down tonight. Clive, I think you said, as you sat down, this is what was going to happen.
Well, I did, I think. But what's really interesting tonight is that one Liberal's gone against the trend, and that's Andrew Hastie in Western Australia. He's gone from a 1.2% margin to about 7-6%, and he's gone the other way.
Okay.
And maybe he is the best person to lead the Liberal Party in the future because he's delivered
I think Andrew Hastie is an outstanding member of Parliament. He has much to contribute. He has made the seat his own. I'm a very good friend of his. Is
he leadership material?
Andrew's always been seen as leadership material. I'm not going to say that not. Absolutely, but Andrew, I don't think there's anybody who hasn't seen Andrew Hastie as a leader. I mean, in particular, when you look at his background, former SAS. He is someone who comes with a great pedigree to the Parliament. He is someone that works he does not take 1 vote for granted in that seat. He actually had a redistributed seat.
Against him.
He might be taking your vote for granted. You sound like your 1 vote he can take for granted.
As I said, tonight's not a night to look.
Well, I tell you what, the King is dead, long live the King. It sounds like you've anointed Andrew Hastie tonight, and you are one of the toughest operators.
You should never
full
put
respect.
Words into someone's mouth.
Oh, no, I just heard it.
But he's had a great result tonight, Andrew Hastie has.
Well, he's a shining light in your party. If you pick through the numbers that we're seeing, he's increased.
He's done well. He's done incredibly well.
He can't take it. He's against the wall.
Don't worry.
Andrew Hastie's risen from the ashes.
Michael, can I say that we're talking about the nature of the Labor victory here? I think Hugh hit on something there. This is a catastrophic defeat for the Liberal Party. They're a rump. 35 seats, struggling to get to 40, the party of Menzies. It's an extraordinary defeat. They're down 14 seats now. I mean, look, Bonner, Leichhardt, Ford, Petrie, Dixon. You lost your leader. Bass, Braddon, the old bellwethers. They've come to the Labor Party. Menzies, Casey's, Deakin, Hughes, Banks. It's decimated the front bench. It's cut off the head of the party. It is a catastrophic defeat. The party that chose nuclear energy as its policy has exploded in a nuclear bomb.
set on them by the voters tonight.
How many shadow ministers do they need in the?
Well, there won't be a
executive?
backbench.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Job.
Everyone gets a
At
job.
least that's one problem we won't have to solve. Every child gets a
There'll be
prize
no
in the
fighting.
office.
Claire, a brief word from you.
Oh, well, I mean, just further to Mark's point that he's made there, you know, who's the leader? That's obviously the practical question.
Exactly.
But what is the strategy back into office from here? I'm just so struck tonight by the sweeping rejection of what the Liberals offered in every part of the country, in every demographic. Yes, they'll choose a new leader, but how is this party going to find its way
Well, you don't
back
need to worry
relevance?
about it. You've got a govern, as Albo
Exactly.
said
And that's
tonight, and you've got a big
exactly
job
right.
ahead tomorrow morning.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
They will
Deliver
be
for
keeping
the
you to
Australian
account.
people. Yes, we will.
Exactly.
Jane, a brief last word from you.
Yeah, look, I mean, clearly voters have made a choice tonight. They've spoken very loudly at the ballot box, and we've got some work to do. Tomorrow's job for us, though, is going to be about speaking to those candidates that have put in so many hours, so much of their lives on hold, and those colleagues of ours that have lost their jobs.
Correct.
This is a really big deal. It's not a small deal. I know, you know, and I was very pleased to see that Channel 7 didn't do silly gimmicks of kicking people out or, you know, all those sorts of things. Because that is...
No, we had
so
raw data
inappropriate.
totonight that called it right.
Which was great. But can I just say, we do need time now to reflect, to make sure that we have listened to the to the feedback from the community, and that we move on from there to be a credible opposition, an effective opposition.
Yep.
Clive, can you promise Australia you're going to stop the spam texts?
There'll be no more spam texts, but I think one of the real problems of the Liberal Party is the average age of the branch members nearly approaching 63. I think we've got to get younger people in the Liberal Party in the future. Saying that, I'm someone at 71, of course. I'm too old for the Liberal Party, but we need younger people in there to have the balance.
Well, it's their future that's at stake, Clive, so absolutely.
Well, to all of you this evening, we very much appreciate you being here. It's good to give up your night. It's been a good, fun, robust, at times entertaining and very accurate night, it turns out. So in terms of the decisions that we were saying and the results that we were calling as well. So it is a resounding result. There's no doubt. Who said this election was going to be line ball and boring?
I know. Sometimes you get it.
Nothing's boring.
There you go.
You get one that no one expected, and I think
This
we
is
are
history.
all sitting here
We've
tonight.
all seen history made tonight. Well done, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese.
Two thank yous from our network, if we don't mind. Hugh Whitfeld, who 59 minutes into our broadcast tonight, and we have invested a lot here at Channel 7 News or 7 News in all of the infrastructure, the technology, the data behind the scenes to get right ahead of even what the Electoral Commission was predicting. And he's driven that with his technical team. You're the best in the business. Hugh Whitfeld, well done to you.
Thank you.
Calling it so early. Exactly. Mark Riley, a huge acknowledgement to you too. You've campaigned as hard as the leaders. And you're a veteran in all of this.
Only for Channel 7, Mark.
No, but you've done very, very well.
Amazing job, guys. Way back at 7:59, we told you there was no chance of a coalition victory. We didn't think it'd be this much, but here we are. A second term for Anthony Albanese and Labor with a majority government. Liberal leader Peter Dutton has lost his seat.
For all the results, seat by seat, please head to 7news.com.au and full coverage on Weekend Sunrise in the morning and 7 News tomorrow night at 6. For now, though, from our 7 News team right across this country for all their hard work, thanks so much for your company. Been really good to have you here. Have a great evening. See you.
Good night.
Tonight, together, we start the new chapter.
Serving as your Prime Minister is the greatest honour of my life. We take up this task with new hope, new confidence and new determination. But the first thing that I do tonight is to say thank you to the people of Australia for the chance to continue to serve the best nation on earth.